1. Email. A common resource provided by the Internet is a worldwide system for sending and receiving electronic mail, known as email. As a matter of fact, email represents a large portion of all Internet traffic, and is for many the only Internet resource they use. One of the reasons for its popularity is perhaps that email is easy to handle. The process of sending email is similar to that of sending the regular mail. Suppose that you live in China and wish to send an email to a friend in America. After composing the letter on your computer, you must specify an email address that identifies your friend. Once you send this electronic letter, it travels from your computer, often through a device called a modem, which connects your computer to the Internet via the telephone network. Off it goes, bound for various computers that act like local and national postal routing facilities. They have enough information to get the letter to a destination computer, where your friend can receive it. Unlike the regular mail, email often reaches its destination, even on other continents, in minutes or less, unless some part of the network is out of order. The ease of email makes it a popular form of communication.
2. The telephone. The telephone is the most common means of communication. It is the greatest carrier of messages. Many people use it almost every day. I can hardly imagine how we should get on if we didn't have telephones. There are some advantages of telephones. The first is speed, and the second is directness. If you want to get an immediate connection, it is obviously quicker to phone someone rather than to write a letter. If you want information, it is often possible to get it directly by phone. Another advantage is that the telephone can give you a personal feeling. If you want to speak or get in contact with a friend or a relative, you feel much closer to them when you are talking to them on the telephone. Whereas in a letter, the words you write down are rather impersonal. However, telephones have some disadvantages. If you have a telephone at home, it often rings at an inconvenient time. For example, the telephone may ring when you are watching your favorite television program. Another disadvantage is that sometimes you might misunderstand what somebody is saying. If it is a matter of really important information, it is probably safer to have it in a letter rather than on telephone.
3.
The seasons. The year is divided into 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. In spring, nature wakes from her long winter sleep. The trees are filled with new life. The earth is warmed by the rays of the sun, and the weather gets gradually milder. The fields and meadows are covered with fresh green grass. The woods and forests are filled with the songs of birds. The sky is blue and cloudless. At night, millions of stars shine in the darkness. When summer comes, the weather gets warmer still, and sometimes it's very hot. It's the farmer's busy season. He works in his fields from morning till night. The grass must be cut, and the hay must be made, while the dry weather lasts. Autumn brings with it harvest time, when the crops are gathered in, and the fruit is picked in the orchards. The days get shorter, and the nights longer. The woods turn yellow, and leaves begin to fall from the trees. When winter comes, we spend more time indoors because outdoors it's cold. Rivers and lakes are frozen, and the roads are sometimes covered with slippery ice or deep snow. 4. Television. Obviously, television has both advantages and disadvantages. In the first place, television is not only a convenient source of entertainment, but also a comparatively cheap one. With a TV set in the family, people don't have to pay for expensive seats at the theater, the cinema, or the opera. All they have to do is to push a button or turn a knob, and they can see plays, films, operas, and shows of every kind. Some people, however, think that this is where the danger lies. The television viewers need do nothing. He does not even have to use his legs if he has a remote control. He makes no choice and exercises no judgment. He is completely passive and has everything presented to him without any effort on his part. Television, it is often said, keeps one informed about current events and the latest developments in science and politics. The most distant countries and the strangest customs are brought right into one's sitting room. It could be argued that the radio performs this service as well, but on television, everything is much more vivid, much more real. Yet, here again, there is a danger. The television screen itself has a terrible, almost physical charm for us. We get so used to looking at the movements on it, so dependent on its pictures, that it begins to control our lives. People are often heard to say that their television sets have broken down and that they have suddenly found that they have far more time to do things and that they have actually begun to talk to each other again. It makes one think, doesn't it? There are many other arguments for and against television. We must realize that television in itself is neither good nor bad. It is the use to which it is put that determines its value to society.
5.
Insurance. Life is full of dangers and surprises. Your house may burn down, and you may fall out of the window and break your neck. Mice may eat your floor so that you drop in the flat below. Anything may happen. You can never know. You cannot always prevent disasters, but you can insure against them. Most forms of insurance are voluntary. It is up to you whether you insure or not. But some forms are compulsory. That means you have to insure. For example, a driver must take out a third-party insurance policy. The three parties are you, yourself, your insurance company, and anybody else. For example, the man who had a crash with you. It doesn't cover fire, theft, or anything else. Its aim is only to protect road users from each other. If you want to insure against all the other terrible things that might happen to you or your car, you can take a comprehensive policy. Another form of compulsory insurance is national insurance. Everybody over 16 earning money on a regular basis must pay a sum each week to the state. These weekly contributions cover part of the cost of the National Health Service and the other social service benefits. Example: unemployment benefit, sickness benefit, old age pensions, and so on. 6. Dreams. A dream is made up of a series of mind pictures that form during sleep. The people and actions in these pictures seem real to the person who is dreaming. When a person is asleep, he has little or no control over his mind. Then, ideas and feelings come out to form the mind picture known as dreams. Dreams may be influenced by different things that are present during sleep. If a person is cold, he may dream that he is out in a snowstorm. Worries or anger may also influence the content of a dream. Some people think that they seldom dream, and other people are quite sure that they do not dream at all. Studies of human sleep have shown, though, that everyone dreams every night. If a person thinks he does not dream, it is because he does not remember dreaming when he wakes up. Usually, a person may dream 3 to 7 times for a total of 1 to 2 hours of dreaming every night. Not only does everyone dream, but it seems that we all need to dream. One theory is that dreaming gives us a chance to escape from the rules of our real world. In dreams, we can see our wishes come true. We can be rich, powerful, and successful.
7. Advantages of a job interview. Nowadays, when a person is hunting for a job, there will always be a job interview, through which the interviewee and the interviewer can know about each other. Therefore, I think that the job interview has many advantages. During the interview, the interviewer lets the interviewee know something about the job, such as the wage, the working conditions, and chances to get promotion. Then, the interviewee can decide whether the job is really suitable for him. Besides, the job interview is also a good chance for the interviewee, because he can impress the interviewer by showing both his ability and his confidence. He can tell the interviewer in person about his educational background or his working experience. Thus, the interviewer can figure out whether he is the right person for the job. In addition, the job interview will do good to both the interviewer and the interviewee. By means of interview, the interviewee can find a good job, and the interviewer can find a suitable person, if both of them make the best of the job interview.
8.
Career selection. Has your son chosen his career yet, Mrs. Young? What is he going to do when he leaves college? Is he going to be a doctor like his father? Oh no, he's decided not to be a doctor. He's seen the hard life of a doctor. Mrs. Black, he's made up his mind to be an engineer. Oh, that's very interesting. A mechanical engineer, like my husband? No, not that sort. Of course, Patrick is very interested in cars too, but he isn't going to make them. There are several kinds of engineers, aren't there? Electrical engineers, chemical engineers. Oh no. Patrick is taking a general course on civil engineering at the university. You know, a civil engineer is a man who makes roads and bridges and that sort of thing. When he's finished the course, he'll take a special course on water supply. Oh, how interesting! Does he intend to go abroad? Oh, yes. When he's finished his education, perhaps he'll take a job abroad. There are a lot of opportunities for water supply engineers, especially in underdeveloped countries. 9. Choosing careers. Parents generally believe it is their responsibility to plan the careers for their children. They claim that they know their children well enough to decide what kind of job suits them, hoping that their children will go in for professions that will bring them the greatest prestige and economic benefit. Many parents think that their children are too young to see this for themselves. There are some parents who even expect their children to take over the careers of their fathers. For these reasons, many parents insist that their children should obey them in choosing careers. But many children suggest that they should be left free to choose their own careers. For one thing, parents and children may not share the same interest. A job that appeals to parents is likely to be boring for their children. For another, children have been brought up in a different age from their parents, and therefore they should be allowed to cultivate a spirit of independence and self-reliance. In short, children should be free to make their own decisions as to future careers. In my opinion, in this case, as in many other things, mutual understanding is important. On the one hand, parents' view does reflect their concern for the well-being of their children. On the other hand, after all, it is children who will be doing the jobs. Therefore, it will be wise for parents to give them this freedom, while children should consult their parents when it is necessary.
10. The successful interview. To be successful in a job interview, the applicant should show certain personal and professional qualities. Inasmuch as the first and often lasting impression of a person is decided by the clothes he wears, the job applicant should take care to appear well-groomed and modestly dressed, avoiding the extremes of too elaborate or too casual. Besides care for personal appearance, he should pay attention to his manner of speaking, which should be neither ostentatious nor familiar, but rather straightforward, accurate, and friendly. In addition, he should be prepared to talk knowledgeably about the requirements of the position for which he is applying in relation to his own professional experience and interests. And finally, the really impressive applicant must convey a sense of self-confidence and enthusiasm for work, factors which all interviewers value highly. The job seeker who displays these characteristics, with just a little luck, will certainly succeed in the typical personnel interview.
11. My family. With 6 people in my family, it's not fun being the middle kid. Besides Mom and Dad, I have 2 older brothers and a pretty sister. My father is a manager in a company, and my mother is a doctor. They are quite busy all day. We all try to help with the housework. Chang Han is my eldest brother. He is a junior in a university now. He is going to be a medical doctor. When he is at home, he has his nose in a book and yells at me if I make the slightest noise. My pretty sister is only in elementary school, but she is good at helping Mother with cooking and cleaning. I'm only a senior in high school. I'm just young enough to get pushed around by my big brothers, and not old enough yet to boss my younger sister. My second elder brother is a whiz at math. Since I'm going to be a chemistry major in college, I sometimes need his help with my homework. He is only a freshman, but he is really good. However, I cannot complain too much. I really love my family. I'm proud of all of them. I would not change them for any other family.
12. Where is happiness from? The way people hold to the belief that a fun-filled, pain-free life equals happiness actually reduces their chances of ever attaining real happiness. If fun and pleasure are equal to happiness, then pain must be equal to unhappiness. But, in fact, the opposite is true. More often than not, things that lead to happiness involve some pain. As a result, many people avoid the very attempts that are the source of true happiness. They fear the pain inevitably brought by such things as marriage, raising children, professional achievement, religious commitment, self-improvement. Ask a bachelor why he resists marriage even though he finds dating to be less and less satisfying. If he is honest, he will tell you that he is afraid of making a commitment. For commitment is in fact quite painful. The single life is filled with fun, adventure, and excitement. Marriage has such moments, but they are not its most distinguishing features. Couples with infant children are lucky to get a whole night's sleep or a 3-day vacation. I don't know any parent who would choose the word fun to describe raising children. But couples who decide not to have children never know the joys of watching a child grow up or of playing with a grandchild. Understanding and accepting that true happiness has nothing to do with fun is one of the most liberating realizations. It liberates us from envy. We now understand that all those who are always having so much fun actually may not be happy at all.
13. The mystery of color. In general, people talk about two groups of colors, warm colors and cool colors. Researchers think that there are also two groups of people who prefer warm colors and people who prefer cool colors. The warm colors are red, orange, and yellow. Where there are warm colors and a lot of light, people usually want to be active. Sociable people, those who like to be with others, like red. The cool colors are green, blue, and violet. These colors, unlike warm colors, are relaxing. Where there are cool colors, people are usually quiet. People who like to spend time alone often prefer blue. Researchers do not know why people think some colors are warm and other colors are cool. Perhaps warm colors remind people of warm days, and the cool colors remind them of cool days. Because in the north, the sun is low during winter, the sunlight appears quite blue. Because the sun is higher during summer, the hot summer sunlight appears yellow.
14.
Physical exercise. More and more people today are realizing the importance of regular physical exercise. In the past, most people's work involved physical labor out in the fresh air of the fields. Nowadays, many work in offices or factories or spend their time studying. In the evenings, they may sit watching television, reading, or writing. Their daily lives do not provide them with the exercise their bodies need. To keep healthy, therefore, they must spend part of their free time doing regular physical exercise. There are many different forms of physical exercise to suit different tastes. Some people enjoy competitive sports and play with others who share their interest. They may play tennis or badminton or go swimming together. Others prefer to exercise alone and go running regularly in the morning or evening. The traditional forms of exercise are chosen by many. In parks and workplaces, you can see them learning and practicing Qigong or Tai Chi Chuan, developing their skill in these sports as well as improving their health. However, the form of physical exercise must be chosen carefully. Those who are older should not attempt an exercise which might do them more harm than good. Those who have little sport time may spend just a small part of it running each day or play a weekly game that they enjoy. Whatever people may choose, if they exercise regularly, they will be sure to improve health throughout their lives.
Test 15. Why do these people learn English? Every year, people in many countries learn English. Some of them are young children, others are teenagers, many are adults. Some learn at school, others study by themselves. A few learn English just by hearing the language in films, on television, and in the office or among their friends. But not many are lucky enough to do that. Most people must work hard to learn English. Why do all these people learn English? It's not difficult to answer this question. Many boys and girls learn English at school because it is one of their subjects. Many adults learn English because it is useful for their work. Teenagers often learn English for their higher studies because some of their books are in English at the college or university. Other people learn English because they want to read newspapers or magazines in English.
16.
Noise pollution. In the past, Noise was rarely associated with pollution, but recently it is found that many mental diseases are closely related to noise. Therefore, it is also labeled as a kind of pollution nowadays. That there is too much noise afflicting our daily life is a manifest fact. Especially in big cities, it is almost a dream to enjoy a short period of noiseless, tranquil leisure time, except at dawn or in the depth of night. Whistling vehicles, bustling crowds of people, untiring loudspeakers of various stores, and lots of others produce nerve-wracking noise. Noise diverts our attention, disturbs our sleep, and destroys our ears. As a consequence, we are becoming more and more fidgety and upset because of the noise pollution. It is high time that serious consideration was given to noise pollution. Moreover, measures should be taken to protect people against noise and secure us a quiet environment. It is an arduous task, yet it can be accomplished if only we try not to be short-sighted and think twice before any hasty and irrational decisions are made. 17. Health is more important than wealth. As the proverb says, no one knows the value of health until he loses it. In other words, nothing is more valuable than health. It is clear that health is the foundation of one's future success. If you become sick, it is nearly impossible to pursue your career effectively, much less make your dreams come true. On the other hand, if you are strong, you can go all out to overcome the obstacles that lie ahead of you. Health is the resource of our energy. What should we do to maintain our health? First, we should exercise every day to strengthen our muscles. Second, we might as well keep good hours. If we get up early, we can breathe fresh air and see the sunrise. This habit can do wonders for our outlook on life. Third, there is a proverb that says, "Prevention is better than cure." If you pay close attention to your health, you can avoid getting sick, or at least cure yourself of a disease while it is still in its beginning stage. In conclusion, health is more important than wealth. Those who are rich but poor in health are no more fortunate than those who are poor but healthy in body. If you want your wish to come true, health is the most important component of your success.
18. Should I live in the countryside or in the city? By living in the countryside, we may enjoy fresh air and food. Unlike the cities, there is almost no pollution in the countryside. What's more, we are much closer to nature. Green trees and grass are everywhere. Life in the countryside is also peaceful and safe. The crime rate there is much lower than in the cities. People in the rural area are more closely related with each other, and they seldom feel lonely. Whenever one is in trouble, others will lend a hand. On the other hand, to live in the cities is not a bad choice either. City traffic is so well developed that people can go anywhere easily and quickly. It is also convenient to do shopping because many shops and markets are just round the corner. In addition, urban people can enjoy more leisure and entertainment. Cinemas, bars, restaurants, and parks are everywhere, and some are open day and night. In a word, city people can always have fun if they have time and money. There are both advantages and disadvantages for people either living in the rural or urban areas. We can't have both at the same time. As the saying goes, you can't eat the cake and have it. As for myself, I would prefer to work in a city and live in the countryside. Maybe the suburban area is the best choice.
19.
Having breakfast or not. Generations of Americans have been brought up to believe that a good breakfast is one of life's essentials. Eating breakfast at the start of the day, we have all been told and told again, is as necessary as putting gasoline in the family car before starting a trip. But for many people, the thought of food as the first thing in the morning is by no means a pleasure. So, despite all the efforts, they still take no breakfast. Between 1997 and 1983, the latest year for which figures are available, the number of people who didn't have breakfast increased by 33%, from 8.8 million to 11.7 million, according to the Chicago-based Market Research Corporation of America. For those who feel pain or guilt about not eating breakfast, however, there is some good news. Several studies in the last few years indicate that, for adults especially, there may be nothing wrong with omitting breakfast. Going without breakfast does not affect performance, said Arnold E. Bender, former professor of nutrition at Queen Elizabeth College in London. Nor does giving people breakfast improve performance. Scientific evidence linking breakfast to better health or better performance is surprisingly inadequate, and most of the recent work involves children, not adults. The literature, says one researcher, Dr. Ernesto Pollitt at the University of Texas, is poor. 20. Smoking. Children as young as 11 are suffering lung damage from too much smoking. A survey of 10,500 London school children, aged between 11 and 15, shows lung damage and illness from smoking. The research was carried out by a hospital team led by Professor Goose. The team was worried that most reports on the dangers of smoking have concentrated on adults. The scientists wanted to find out how children were affected and whether they understood smoking could make them seriously ill. The number of adults has gone down steadily, but the number of children smoking remained constant. This is mainly because children find it hard to believe that health warnings apply to them. The research was carried out in 13 Hounslow secondary schools. Analysis showed 15% of regular smokers coughed every day. Even a little exercise brought on breathlessness among 40% of regular smokers aged 11 to 13. A survey of school absence suggested that non-smokers had better health than the smokers. About 53% of regular smokers admitted to bring up phlegm when they had a cold, compared to only 2% of non-smokers. But Professor Goose's team was surprised at the children's ignorance of the damage caused by smoking. Both non-smokers and smokers knew cigarettes could cause cancer, but few know of the other health risks. Professor Goose said, "We believe that health education may be improved by making full use of knowledge concerning the breathing disorders in children who are regular smokers. This information must be presented early, even at primary school."
21. The education of TV children. Many children act in TV shows. They work several hours every day, so they cannot go to a regular school. How do they get an education? In Hollywood, where many TV shows are made, about 40 teachers give lessons for the children in the shows. They teach wherever their pupils are working. The teacher's job is very important. She is responsible for making sure that the child works only the permitted hours each week. She is responsible for making sure that the child learns the required subjects. She makes sure, too, that the child gets enough rest and play, along with his education. Child actors are required to attend classes 20 hours each week. California law says that they must be taught from September to the middle of June. If they do not get good marks in school, they are not permitted to continue working in TV shows. TV children are usually good pupils, and most of their teachers like this special kind of work. Their classes are held in many interesting places. Sometimes the classroom is a Mississippi riverboat. Sometimes it is the inside of a spaceship. Often the pupils become famous stars.
22. Learning English. As we all know, English is the most widely used language in the world. It's important for us to study English well. But how? I like English as well as maths and physics. At the beginning of my English study, I spent a lot of time in memorizing the grammatical rules of English. I wasn't interested in listening or speaking. Many times, the marks I got in English tests were not as good as those in my maths test, so I decided to change my way of study. From then on, I have begun to pay attention to listening. In my spare time, I often listen to English tapes and watch some English programs on TV. I try my best to grasp the main idea. Reading is an important step in learning English well. I read textbooks and other reading materials. When I am free, I often read English magazines and newspapers. Although there are lots of new words, I often go through what I read without paying much attention to the new words or difficult sentences. In this way, I've improved my reading comprehension. How glad I am! The more I read, the more I understand. The more I understand, the more I read. Recently, I have also been trying to write. Though I often make mistakes, I am not discouraged. I'm determined to study English well. I'm sure I will know it well in the future. 23. It's never too late for success. Some parents worry very much that their children will amount to nothing since they are given to daydreaming, indecision, and they show no promise of being a doctor, lawyer, or manager. Meanwhile, the teenagers themselves also despair of the future and their success, for they are constantly scorned and blamed. But the truth is that many of the greater figures were practically beatniks when they were teenagers. Mozart never showed talent in any direction whatsoever during his formative years until he was 22, when he suddenly became fired with a great passion for music. Edison finally attracted worldwide attention for his great contribution, although his teacher had tried to get him out of the class, saying that his brain was addled. Therefore, it's never too late for success. Teenagers, however disappointing and disappointed, have that one special advantage over the greatest men alive: time. They surely can arrive at the peak of their career in the near future, as long as they avail themselves of valuable time and exert themselves to accomplish their share of work carefully and persistently.
24. The development of American cities. American cities are similar to other cities around the world. In every country, cities reflect the values of the culture. Cities contain the very best aspects of a society: opportunities for education, employment, and entertainment. They also contain the very worst parts of a society: violent crime, racial conflict, and poverty. American cities are changing, just as American society is changing. After World War II, city residents became wealthier, more prosperous. They had more children. They needed more space. They moved out of their apartments in the city to buy their own homes. They bought houses in the suburbs, areas near the city where people live. These are areas without many offices or factories. During the 1950s, the American dream was to have a house in the suburbs. Now things are changing. The children of the people who left the cities in 1950s are now adults. They, unlike their parents, want to live in the cities. Many young professionals, doctors, lawyers, and executives are moving back into the city. Many are single, others are married, but often without children. They prefer the city to the suburbs because their jobs are there. They are afraid of the fuel shortage, or they just enjoy the excitement and opportunities which the city offers. A new class is moving into the city, a wealthier, more mobile class. Only a few years ago, people thought that the older American cities were dying. Some city residents now see a bright new future. Others see only problems and conflicts. One thing is sure, many dying cities are alive again.
25. TOEFL. TOEFL is a short way of saying Test of English as a Foreign Language. It measures a person's ability to understand, read, and write English. TOEFL does not measure how well you speak English, however. The test of spoken English does. It is about a 20-minute test that involves speaking English. Many American universities will advise you to take this test if you plan to attend a graduate school. Some universities also will tell you to take yet another test, the test of written English. It is a 30-minute test in which you are asked to write in English about something. The test measures your ability to organize information and to express ideas in correct English. Professors of English as a foreign language work with foreign students who come to the United States to study English. They say many foreign students do not know how much writing they must do every week at an American university, and they do not know how much they are expected to talk in class. They say foreign students must do well in writing and speaking English, or their studies in the United States will be extremely difficult.
26. American education. Newcomers to the United States are often surprised by the schools. American schools are sometimes so different from the schools they have known in other parts of the world. American education is based on the idea that children need to learn to think for themselves. The school should be the place where they learn to do this. In schools, children learn the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. They study history and government, which are often called social studies, and many other subjects. They also learn how to be independent, how to make their own judgment, and how to develop their own abilities and interests. The American teacher does not want the children in her class to sit with their hands folded quietly and to say nothing. She wants them to listen carefully, to ask questions, to answer questions, and to give their own opinions. She knows that what the children learn from books is important. She also knows that it is necessary for them to know how to use this learning for their growth and development. During the Open School Week, parents have a chance to see how American education works.
27. Water resources. With the economic development and the increase of the population, we are faced with the lack of water supply. From a recent survey, it can be seen that the consumption of water all over the world has been remarkably raised compared with that of last year. Statistics also show that a lot of water resources such as lakes, rivers, and oceans have been polluted seriously. As a result, there is less space for people to obtain enough healthy water. So, it is high time for us to find a solution to the problem. There are two main ways to solve the problem. First, with the development of high technology, new resources may be found and the present ones can be exploited effectively. Second, measures should be taken to restrain the increase of water consumption. For example, we can advocate the recycling of water in industry. Being one of those whose life had been threatened by the crisis, I would like to do something helpful, such as not wasting water in daily life and spreading the idea of protecting environment. As long as we take it seriously, we will definitely overcome this difficulty.
28. Different purposes of working. Careerists are people whose self-image is determined almost exclusively by their jobs. Virtually everything they do is designed to advance their careers. They are defined by their jobs. When you meet a careerist at a party, he immediately tells you his occupation. Take away a careerist's job, and he doesn't know who he is. He loses his identity. His life is seriously out of balance. This particular disease is called careerism. Workaholics may or may not be careerists. Workaholics also spend most of their time and energy on their jobs, but there may be different reasons for their work pattern. They may not even identify with their jobs. Work may simply be an escape, an effort to avoid dealing with life. On the other hand, a workaholic may love his job and simply become addicted to the pleasure of doing it, and doing it well. Careerists may not even like their jobs. In fact, they may not even work that hard. They may spend most of their time on organizational politics for advancement. Careerists are not so much into work as into seeking identity through their jobs, their career advancement, and the symbols of success. A workaholic may be working to help others or to support a noble cause. If we are working on projects we see as important to social transformation, it is easy to become obsessed with the project and let other areas of our lives slide. We must all strive to avoid this pitfall. Managers must be alert to both careerists and workaholics, recognize the differences, and seek to help both move in the direction of wholeness.
29. The killer, smoking. 2 days later, I was wheeled into the surgery. The tumor was inoperable, so they just sewed me up again. After a month or so, I went for radiation treatment 5 days a week for 7 weeks. It made me unbelievably tired. On the way home, Bernice would have to pull the car off the road so I could vomit. One of the first walks I took was out to the letterbox. It's less than 100 meters away, but I had to sit down halfway there. The birds were singing, and the smell of honeysuckle filled the air. I thought, the world is such a beautiful place. Why did I have to ruin it for myself by smoking? I'm angry with myself for smoking. but I'm also angry with the tobacco companies. I saw a couple of cigarette executives on TV the other day, and they had the gall to say there's no proof that smoking is bad for you. I'm proof. Today, when I look in the mirror, I am shocked by what I see. A man with no teeth, a scar from his chest round to his back, struggling to walk, face distorted with pain. And then I realize what I want to do. I want to have my picture blown up and plastered all over the world on giant billboards. Because now, you see, I'm the real Marlboro Man.
30.
American education system. In the United States, boys and girls start school when they are 5 years old. In some states, they must stay in school until they are 16. Most students are 17 or 18 years old when they leave secondary school. Another name for secondary school is high school. Most children go to public elementary and secondary schools. The parents of public pupils do not have to pay directly for their children's education because tax money supports the public schools. If a child attends a private school, his parents pay for the child's education. Today, about half of the high school graduates go to college and universities that receive tax money from the government. A student at a state university does not have to pay very much if his parents live in that state. Private colleges and universities are expensive. However, almost half of the college students in the United States work while they are studying. When a student's family is not rich, he has to earn money for part of his college expenses. 31. The Great Titanic. The great ship Titanic sailed for New York from Southampton on April 10, 1912. She was carrying 1,316 passengers and a crew of 891. Even by modern standards, the 46,000-ton Titanic was a colossal ship. At that time, however, she was not only the largest ship that had ever been built, but was regarded as unsinkable, for she had 16 watertight compartments. Even if 2 of these were flooded, she would still be able to float. The tragic sinking of this great liner will always be remembered, for she went down on her first voyage with heavy loss of life. 4 days after setting out, while the Titanic was sailing across the icy waters of the North Atlantic, a huge iceberg was suddenly spotted by a lookout. After the alarm had been given, the great ship turned sharply to avoid a direct collision. The Titanic turned just in time, narrowly missing the immense wall of iceberg over 100 feet out of the water beside her. Suddenly, there was a slight trembling sound from below, and the captain went down to see what had happened. The noise had been so faint that no one thought that the ship had been damaged. Below, the captain realized to his horror that the Titanic was sinking rapidly, for 5 of her 16 watertight compartments had already been flooded. The order to abandon the ship was given, and hundreds of people plunged into the icy water. As there were not enough lifeboats for everybody, 1,500 lives were lost.
32.
Vitamins. As is known to all, vitamins are essential to our health. Listed in the table are 3 different kinds of vitamins. They are vitamins A, B, and C. Vitamin A comes mainly from milk, butter, cheese, fish, and green vegetables. It is very important for healthy skin and teeth, as well as for normal growth of the human body. Lack of it may cause skin troubles and bad eyesight, and our resistance to disease may be lowered accordingly. Vitamin B is chiefly contained in bread, meat, milk, liver, and potatoes. It can play the role of a catalyst in digestion of food. If we are short of it, we will probably lose our appetite and our growth will be slowed. Vitamin C generally exists in fruit, potatoes, and green vegetables. It is necessary for the formation of teeth, bones, and blood vessels. Without enough of it, our growth will also be slowed. The amount of different kinds of vitamins needed daily by humans varies considerably. We need about 1 milligram of vitamin C and 20 milligrams of vitamin B for the regular period of time. It is true that we do not need too much vitamins, but it is also true that we cannot live healthily without them. 33.
Food and health. The food we eat seems to have profound effects on our health. Although science has made enormous steps in making food more fit to eat, it has at the same time made many foods unfit to eat. Some research has shown that perhaps 80% of all human illnesses are related to diet, and 40% of cancer is related to the diet as well, especially cancer of the colon. Some cultures are more prone to contract certain illnesses because of the food that is characteristic in these cultures. That food is related to illness is not a new discovery. In 1945, government researchers realized that nitrates, commonly used to preserve color in meats and other food additives, caused cancer. Yet these carcinogenic additives remain in our food, and it becomes more difficult all the time to know what is contained in our food. Farmers often give penicillin to beef and poultry, and because of this, penicillin has been found in the milk of treated cows. Sometimes similar drugs are administered to animals not for medicinal purposes, but for financial reasons. The farmers are simply trying to fatten the animals in order to obtain a higher price on the market. Although the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has tried repeatedly to control these procedures, the practices continue. 34.
The art of shaking hands. Today it is perfectly natural for us to shake hands when we greet someone, or say goodbye. But like so many other things we do without thinking, such actions as shaking hands at one time probably symbolize something else. For example, in primitive life, the hand was probably a symbol of power and strength. The hand was used to fight enemies, kill animals, and make spears and implements. So when the hand was extended to someone, it could have represented goodwill, since it showed that the person was not armed or ready to fight. We know that the hand was an important symbol in early religion, probably as a mark of power. The Greeks prayed to their gods with raised hands. Presenting hand palm to palm was at one time the way an inferior person paid respect to a superior. Among the Arabs, it was customary at one time to kiss the hand of a superior. Later on, polite Arabs began to resist the efforts of people to kiss their hands, and sometimes they would end up clapping hands as each tried to prevent the other from showing this mark of inferiority. The early Greeks held out the right hand when they wished to indicate friendship to a stranger. The hand, and what was done with it, have been full of meaning to people down through the ages. And while we shake hands, we are really carrying on a custom that has been handed down to us from ancient times. 35.
Mother's love. Only a mother's love is selfless love. Anyone can see how sincerely mothers love their children. When you were a baby, your mother protected you as much as she could. In your waking hours, she held you in her arms. Whenever you made the least noise, she stopped her work to attend to you. Sometimes, when she slept at night, the least stir on your part would awake her. She gave her whole heart to you. When you were old enough to go to school, you might think it was natural, but your mother would never forget that day. When the weather grew a little colder, she would think that you might be wearing too little clothing. When it became a little warmer, she would be afraid that you were wearing too much. When there was anything nice to eat in the family, she would wish you were at home to eat it. When she heard of your good health and work at school, she would feel happy. In case your health and work were not very good, she would feel sorry for you, even more sorry than you felt yourself. When you went home for a vacation, she would make your bed and prepare foods for you as if you were a guest. When you were about to go back to school at the end of a vacation, she prepared something for you to take back. If you searched the trunk carefully, you might find some tears in a corner, which your mother had shed for your leaving. 36.
Human nose. The human nose has given to the languages of the world many interesting expressions. Of course, this is not surprising. Without the nose, we could not breathe or smell. It is the part of the face that gives a person special character. Cyrano de Bergerac said that a large nose showed a great man, courageous, courteous, manly, and intellectual. A famous woman poet wished that she had two noses to smell a rose. Blaise Pascal, a French philosopher, made an interesting comment about Cleopatra's nose. If it had been shorter, he said, it would have changed the whole face of the world. Historically, man's nose has had a principal role in his imagination. Man has referred to the nose in many ways to express his emotions. Expressions concerning the nose refer to human weakness, anger, pride, jealousy, and revenge. In English, there are a number of phrases about the nose. For example, to hold up one's nose expresses a basic human feeling, pride. People can hold up their noses at people, things, and places. The phrase, to be led around by the nose, shows man's weakness. A person who is led around by the nose lets other people control him. On the other hand, a person who follows his nose lets his instinct guide him. For the human emotion of rejection, the phrase to have one's nose put out of joint is very descriptive. The expression applies to persons who have been turned aside because of a competitor. Their pride is hurt and they feel rejected. This expression is not new. It was used by Erasmus in 1542. This is only a sampling of expressions in English dealing with the nose. There are a number of others. However, it should be as plain as the nose on your face that the nose is more than an organ for breathing and smelling. 37. The International Red Cross. The Red Cross is an international organization which cares for people who are in need of help. A man in a Paris hospital who needs blood. A woman in Mexico who was injured in an earthquake. And a family in India that lost their home in a storm may all be aided by the Red Cross. The Red Cross exists in almost every country around the globe. The World Red Cross organizations are sometimes called the Red Crescent, the Red Mogen David, the Sun, and the Red Lion. All of these agencies share a common goal of trying to help people in need. The idea of forming an organization to help the sick and wounded during a war started with Jean-Henri Dunant. In 1859, he observed how people were suffering on a battlefield in Italy. He wanted to help all the wounded people, regardless of which side they were fighting for. The most important result of his work was an international treaty called the Geneva Convention. It protects prisoners of war, the sick and wounded, and other citizens during a war. The American Red Cross was set up by Clara Barton in 1881. Today, the Red Cross in the United States provides a number of services for the public, such as helping people in need, teaching first aid, demonstrating water safety and artificial respiration, and providing blood.
Test 38. Australia. Is Australia the world's largest island or its smallest continent? Actually, it's both. In fact, Australia is the only country that is also a continent. Although roughly the size of the United States mainland, Australia has a population of about 16.5 million people. That makes this island nation one of the least densely populated countries. What ethnic groups make up the Australian population? The majority of Australians are of English, Irish, Italian, Greek, Dutch, and Polish descent. However, over the past 50 years, some 4 million people from more than 120 countries have made Australia their home. This includes a large number of Asian and African immigrants. In addition to being the smallest, Australia is also the driest inhabited continent. Lush green pastures may be typical in sheep farming areas. However, most of the land, particularly in the outback, is so arid that people are unable to live on it in its undeveloped state. That explains why most Australians live in metropolitan areas, many of which line the coast, and why Australia is considered one of the world's more urbanized countries.
39. A woman at home. In Japan, most people still feel that a woman's place is in the home, and most women willingly accept their traditional role as wives, leaving the business of making a living to their husbands. For those who do want a career of their own, opportunities are limited, and working women usually have to settle for lower wages, fewer promotions, and less responsible positions. In America, on the other hand, most women, including wives and mothers, work most of their lives. But until recently, few have had real careers. As in Japan, most fields are dominated by men, and opportunities for women have been restricted, salaries low, chances for advancement rare. American women work mainly because they have to. In these days of inflation and luxurious living, only one income per family is simply not enough to live on. So, American women actually have 2 jobs. One 9-to-5 position outside the home, and the other round-the-clock in-the-home job, such as wife, housemaid, cook, and nurse. One of the main goals of the modern women's liberation movement, which started in the early 1960s, was to eliminate sex discrimination in the workforce and to open up opportunities for women that were previously reserved for men. And though there is still a long way to go, a lot of progress has been made.
40. Making decisions. It is amusing to watch some of my friends who can come to a decision right away, and others who can't. Some people can look at a menu, can pick up a menu, and right away know what they're going to have for dinner that night. The others will ponder and look at the thing and not be able to reach any kind of decision for a long, long time without some help. I was thinking about this when I was talking to my sister the other day, and I thought about how her children came to decisions. It seems to me that for young children, they come to decisions very quickly, and I was thinking about this, and one of the reasons might be that she has given them a great deal of responsibility at a very young age. She has allowed them to make decisions on their own. She takes them shopping many times, and she allows them to choose clothes of their own liking. And I think, in a way, that teaches a great deal of responsibility. Of course, they consult her sometimes, but many times they are able to decide on something on their own. And I was thinking about my friends and how some of them were not able to make a decision on their own, and maybe their parents didn't allow them to decide their own clothes.
41. Birth, marriage, and death. Birth, marriage, and death. These are the greatest events in human life. Many things, good or bad, can happen to us in our lives. Yet there are days which are usually marked by some kinds of special ceremony. The day we are born, the day we get married, and the day we die. These are the three main events in life. We have a choice in the second of these. We can choose whether or not to marry. But we have no choice in birth and death. All human beings, from the most primitive to the most sophisticated, are affected by these three events. The only thing that differs in each society is the way these events are celebrated. But all societies share common characteristics. Birth is a time of joy. The proud parents receive congratulations and presents on behalf of the newborn. Marriage is also a time of joy. The young couple go through a special wedding ceremony and receive presents to help them set up their home. Death is a time of sorrow and is marked by a special ceremony and mourning. The dates of all three events are usually remembered.
42.
A good teacher or not? A good teacher is many things to many people. In my own experience, the people I respect the most and think about the most are those who demanded the most discipline from their students. I miss one teacher in particular that I had in high school. I think she was a good teacher because she was a very strict person. I remember very vividly a sign over her classroom door. It was a simple sign that said, "Laboratory." In this room, the first 5 letters of the word are emphasized, not the last 7. In other words, I guess, labor for her was more important than oratory, which means making speeches. She prepared her work very carefully and demanded us to do the same. We got lots of homework from her. Once she had broken her arm. Everybody in the class thought that maybe the homework load would be reduced, but it continued just the same. She checked our work by stamping her name at the bottom of the papers to show that she had read them. I think sometimes teachers who demand the most are perhaps liked the least. But as time goes by, this discipline really seems to benefit the students. 43. Traveling. Nowadays, traveling during holidays has become a fashion in China with the development of economy. When the demands on food, clothes, and some other necessities of life become far beyond being satisfied, people have come to spend their extra money on traveling. Traveling has many advantages. Firstly, it provides opportunities for people to taste strange food and to know alien customs that they otherwise would not know. Secondly, through traveling, people can broaden their scope of knowledge, especially of geography and history. However, traveling also has some disadvantages. For example, perilous peaks and furious rapids may endanger travelers' lives. Accommodations and bad weather trouble travelers a lot. On the whole, I think traveling does more good than harm. These so-called disadvantages can even be regarded as good conditions in which travelers can build up both physical strength and willpower. If both your finance and health permit, you might as well do some traveling from time to time. Perhaps an exotic atmosphere and charming scenes can attract you so much that you even forget to return.
44. Hobbies. A hobby can be almost anything a person likes to do in his spare time. They watch birds, hunt animals, climb mountains, raise flowers, fish, ski, skate, and swim. They paint pictures, go to concerts, collect everything from books to butterflies, and from shells to stamps. People take up hobbies because these activities offer enjoyment, friendship, knowledge, and relaxation. Anyone, rich or poor, old or young, sick or well, can follow a satisfying hobby. Besides, hobbies can help a person's mental and physical health. Doctors have found that hobbies are valuable in helping patients recover from physical or mental illness. In early times, most people were too busy making a living to have many hobbies. But some persons did enjoy hobbies. The ancient Egyptians played games with balls made of wood, and some Greeks and Romans collected things. People today have more time than ever before for hobbies. Machines and automation have reduced the amount of time they must spend on their jobs. Once a famous Canadian doctor expressed the value of hobbies by saying, "So let's take up a hobby and be really a happy man."
45.
Body language. When we do not understand each other's language, we talk with the help of signs. A Frenchman was once traveling in England. He could not speak English at all. One day, he went into a restaurant and sat down at a table. When the waiter came, he opened his mouth, put his fingers in it, and took them out again. He wanted to say, "Bring me something to eat." The waiter soon brought him a cup of tea. The man moved his head from side to side. The waiter understood him and took away the tea. In a moment, he brought a cup of coffee and put it on the table. The man again moved his head from side to side. He moved his head from side to side whenever the waiter brought him something to drink. He brought him a lot of different drinks, but drinks are not food, of course. When the man was going away, another man came in. This man saw the waiter, and he put his hands on his stomach. That was enough. In a few minutes, there was a large plate of meat and vegetables on the table in front of him. So you see, we cannot understand the language of signs so well as the language of words. 46.
Earthquake. Most earthquakes occur within the upper 15 miles of the Earth's surface. But earthquakes can and do occur at all depths to about 460 miles. Their number decreases as the depth increases. At about 460 miles, one earthquake occurs only every few years. Near the surface, earthquakes may run as high as 100 in a month, but the yearly average does not vary much. In comparison with the total number of earthquakes each year, the number of disastrous earthquakes is very small. The extent of the disaster in an earthquake depends on many factors. If you carefully build a toy house with an erector set, it will still stand no matter how much you shake the table. But if you build a toy house with a pack of cards, a slight shake of the table will make it fall. An earthquake in Agadir, Morocco, was not strong enough to be recorded on distant instruments, but it completely destroyed the city. Many stronger earthquakes have done comparatively little damage. If a building is well constructed and built on solid ground, it will resist an earthquake. Most deaths in earthquakes have been due to faulty building construction or poor building sites. A very serious factor is panic. When people rush out into narrow streets, more deaths will result. The United Nations has played an important role in reducing the damage done by earthquakes. It has sent a team of experts to all countries known to be affected by earthquakes. Working with local geologists and engineers, the experts have studied the nature of the ground and the type of most practical building code for the local area. If followed, these suggestions will make disastrous earthquakes almost a thing of the past. 47. Britain Higher Education. In Britain, there are a number of different kinds of higher education. First of all, of course, there are the universities. Everyone may have heard of Oxford and Cambridge, the two oldest universities in England. But, of course, there is a large number of other universities, many of which have opened since the war. The latest of these is the Open University, which, as its name suggests, is open to all. Students of the Open University are not needed to have any previous qualification. All the students are part-time and are taught through the medium of television and radio, although they do receive some personal tuition as well through centers located near their homes. The first graduates were awarded their degrees in 1973. Besides the universities, there are other institutions such as polytechnics and technical colleges. These tend to offer courses of vocational skills as well as academic courses. If a student wants to study management, for example, he would be more likely to go to one of these institutions. Colleges of education provide training and education for prospective teachers. Most of the students receive grants from their local authority, which cover tuition fees and allow a certain amount of money to the students to pay for their fee and their books. Most of the colleges and universities have a good proportion of students from other countries.
48.
Getting to know the world outside the campus. It is absolutely necessary for college students to know the world outside the campus. The ultimate end for college study is to serve society. Every college student has to join society someday. If they do not know sufficiently enough about the outside world, it may be very difficult for them to adapt to society. There are several ways for them to get to know the outside world. First, they can read newspapers, listen to radios, and watch TV. Actually, all the major events and changes in society are covered in the media in time and in details. If students make full use of the media, they will be quite informed about the society they live in. Second, students can take part in social services. In this way, they can get in touch with all kinds of people and know their views. Third, students can even take up some part-time jobs if time permits. By doing so, they can experience the feeling of joining the society they live in and doing a job for it. As for myself, I will read more newspapers. They are available in the school library. I have a portable radio. Every day, I spend some time listening to the news. In the summer vacation, I will take up a part-time job. I believe I can know a lot about society in this way. 49. November sees fewest births in Britain. In modern Britain, fewer babies are born in November than in any other month of the year. The weather may be partly responsible. As in New Zealand, something similar happens, but with a difference of 6 months. 500 years ago, things are quite different, the lowest number of births occurring in June, later shifting to August, and in the end to the present November minimum. The reason for this may be found in the pattern of marriage, which in earlier times reached a peak in November, with fewest marriages taking place in February and March. This pattern seems to have followed the calendar of medieval religious festivals, with most marriages taking place in the holidays before the Christmas period, and fewest in the period of abstinence before Easter. The cycle seems to have changed gradually as the religious festivals of the medieval church lost their importance as a punctuation point in the working year, and thus ceased to determine the pattern of marriage and the related pattern of births.
50.
Housing problem. In the United States, many people only lived in large 2- and 3-story homes. Today, many people would like to live in such houses, but most people can't. They don't have enough money to buy them or even to make the first payment. So many people rent from month to month. But some Americans really want to live in a house of their own, so they build their own homes. They buy a house that is situated in an area where houses are cheaper. It is better to reside in a bad part of town, they think, than not to live in a house at all, or they buy an old house and redesign it. Then they decorate it with old-style furniture. Sometimes they can make an old house look more beautiful than a new one. Usually, it is not difficult for people to find an old home to buy. Many older people decide that they don't need a big home after their children leave, so they sell their house and move into a comfortable apartment. But when people move into a house, they sometimes have problems. Homeowners have to do their own maintenance. For example, if the roof leaks, one cannot ask the landlord to fix it. On the other hand, people can redesign their home in any way they want without having to be afraid of being thrown out by the landlord. 51. Mutual understanding is important. Parents and teenagers often disagree about the amount of freedom and responsibility that young people are to have. Teenagers often want to be free to choose their own direction to spend leisure time. Some like to learn painting, while others prefer to sit around and talk or sing. Young people as a whole are anxious to be understood by their parents. On the other hand, most people don't quite understand their children. They regard it as their responsibility to teach offspring traditional beliefs, and they want the young to be obedient and do well in school. There always exists a tendency for parents to interfere in children's daily activities, insisting that homework be completed, while their teenagers' particular interests and hobbies are often neglected or even ignored. Personally, I think most problems between teenagers and their parents can be solved by joint planning and decision-making. Within any given family, agreements are achieved and problems are solved when all of the members take interest in the problem and share in their effort to work it out. Hence, parents and young people must realize the necessity to learn how to understand each other. In this way, even the most difficult problems can be solved.
52. Should we learn to do housework? Nowadays, when we walk through the streets, we often see many boys and girls who, instead of spending their time on books, go roaming about the streets, start funny clubs, and give parties. They think it is the parents' responsibility to support them and do all the housework, so they do not work and just remain idle. We can also see some boys and girls who live in a small world of their own. They bury themselves among books and also are proud of themselves. They think that it will be condescending themselves if they do housework, for they often think themselves well educated. The attitude of these two types of youngsters towards housework is wrong. In my opinion, everyone, without the exception of boys, should have knowledge of housework. After all, they will have a family of their own, and they should contribute their part in maintaining a good home. Boys should also learn to do housework, for what will they do if they remain single? Though not all boys remain single, yet they will be valuable assistants in the family if they can do some housework. So, why not learn to do housework now?
53.
Are you ready for Valentine's Day? February 14th is a special day for sweethearts. It was once thought to be the time when a chubby little love god named Cupid aimed his arrows at the hearts of young men and women. Many people believe that their future happiness was connected with Valentine festivities. Valentine's Day is believed to have had its beginnings in a Roman festival called the Lupercalia. The early Roman men often pinned on their sleeves the names of the girls who were to be their partners. Even today we say that a man wears his heart upon his sleeves when he shows interest in a lady. Sometimes the couple exchanged gifts. Ladies often received perfumed gloves or fine jewels. After the Lupercalia became a saint's day honoring Saint Valentine, some of the old customs were kept. It remained an important time for anyone looking for a sweetheart. Later, people began to exchange Valentine cards instead of gifts. The Duke of Orleans is believed to have made the first Valentine card. When he was kept in the Tower of London in 1415, he wrote love poems to his wife in France. Sweethearts exchanged handmade cards during the 18th and 19th centuries. Valentine cards became popular in the United States during the Civil War. Within a few years, Valentine's Day received almost as much attention as Christmas. 54.
Keeping our city clean. Cities, big or small, should be clean. A clean city is good both to our mind and body. In a clean city, diseases may be reduced, and people's health may be better. We can hardly imagine that people live happily in a dirty city with waste everywhere. However, keeping our city clean is no easy job, especially in modern times when more and more people are moving into the cities. These people produce waste every day. But big waste producers may be factories which pour wastes into the air, river, and onto the ground. It is necessary to impose some kind of laws on them in order to keep our city clean. To keep our city clean, our government has already done a lot. For example, arranging for sanitation men to clean the main road every night, placing dustbins in the street, disposing garbage in a scientific way, etc. Perhaps a more active way is to call on people to plant more trees, put wastes into fixed places. If every one of us takes care of our city and does his best to keep it clean, our city is sure to be a beautiful place where all of us can live a happy life.
55.
How to use the library. The library is an English language teaching and learning library. Unfortunately, our resources are limited, and so not everybody can join. Teachers of English, university students, and professionals who are in the medical, engineering, and management fields can all join the library. Those from other professions are welcome to apply, but your application will not necessarily be approved. You must fill in a library application form and put it in the box or the librarian's desk. Because of the high number of applications we receive each week, you must wait for 1 week. Please bring your student or work card to pick up your library cards. Library application forms which are not picked up within 1 month will be discarded and you will have to reapply. You may borrow 1 video at a time. The video must be returned in 1 week. If you cannot return it on time, please call. Otherwise, your video library card will be cancelled. You may borrow 3 items at one time, i.e., 3 books or 3 cassettes. Items must be returned within 1 month. You can telephone the library to renew items for another month. 56.
True friends. Friends play a very important part in everyone's life. Friendship usually develops during childhood. New friends are made when you progress through school. Those friends that you make as a student can usually last long. Friends influence your development, maturity, and sense of responsibility. A familiar expression is, you can tell a lot about a person by knowing who his friends are. Friendship is based on common interests. If you like sports, most of your friends are likely to be athletic. If you enjoy reading and shopping, most of your friends do the same. Some people call you their friends for the wrong reasons. These people are not real friends. They are superficial, only friends on the outside, not the inside where it counts. Superficial friends only want to be your friends if it is to their advantage. True friends are there whether you are rich or poor. It is easy to have many so-called friends if you are rich. True friends are difficult to find. You can consider yourself lucky if you have one true friend. The true friend is eager to help you whenever necessary. True friends support you, take your side, and build up your confidence.
57. The white lie. Have you ever noticed advertisements which say, "Learn a foreign language in 6 weeks, or we pay your money back"? From the first day your pronunciation will be excellent. Just send, and so on. Of course, it never happens like that. The only language that is easy to learn is the mother tongue. And think how much practice that gets. Before the Second World War, people usually learned a foreign language in order to read the literature of the country. Now, speaking the foreign language is what most people want. Every year, many millions of people start learning one. How do they do it? Some people try at home with books and record tapes. Others go to evening classes. If they use the language only 2 or 3 times a week, learning it will take a long time, like language learning at school. A few people try to learn a language fast by studying for 6 or more hours a day. It is clearly easier to learn the language in the country where it is spoken. However, most people cannot afford this, and for many, it is necessary. They need the language in order to do their work better. For example, scientists and doctors chiefly need to be able to read books and reports in the foreign language. Whether the language is learnt quickly or slowly, it is hard work. Machines and good books are helpful, but they cannot do the student's work for them.
58. Living at college or at home. There are 2 types of college experiences: living at college and living at home. It's possible to get an equally good education from one as from the other. Nevertheless, living away has more advantages than staying at home. Students who live at college are deeply involved in school activities. College becomes a world in itself in which students can devote themselves to study. In contrast, students living at home cannot get into the world of college. It is still like high school. Thanks to living in a dormitory, those living at college have more freedom. The freedom of living at college builds social maturity. They have to get along with many new, unknown people. These help them grow. Students living at home deal most of the time with people they've already known, their teachers and classmates. There isn't enough chance to meet new friends because when classes end, they'll go home. Living at college is better. Class discussions can be carried on to the dinner table. The library is a short walk away. Students who live at home don't have these advantages. Living at college, therefore, has great advantages. It offers the opportunity to get a better, fuller education.
59. The best age to be. Each age has its pleasure and its pains. The happiest person is the one who enjoys what each age gives him without wasting his time in useless regrets. Childhood is a time when there are few responsibilities to make life difficult. A child finds pleasure in doing almost anything. But a child has his pains. He is not free as he wishes, as he thinks people are. A young man becomes free from the discipline of school and parents when he starts to earn his own living. But at the same time, he is forced to accept responsibilities. He has to work hard if he wants to live comfortably. If he breaks the laws of the society, as he used to break the laws of his parents, he may be put into prison. If he works hard, he may have a happiness of seeing his own success. Old age has always been thought of as the worst age to be, but the old can have the joy of seeing their children making progress in life. And perhaps best of all, they can have the happiness of having come through the battle of life safely, and of having reached a time when they can lie back and rest, seeing others to continue the fight.
60. Money problems. My brother, Henry, has an excellent job at a bank. I couldn't believe him when he told me that he had decided to give it up. Though I tried to make him change his mind, I failed completely. You should reconsider your decision, I said. You have already spent 5 years in the bank, and you could have a wonderful career. You might become a bank manager by the time you're 35. I know, Henry answered. I've got no complaints with the bank. It's a pleasant job in pleasant surroundings, and we keep civilized hours. The bank manager told me that my prospects were excellent. Then why do you want to leave? I asked. It's the money, Henry answered. But you're getting a good salary, I said. I don't mean that, Henry said. What do I do at the bank? Well, at the moment, all I do is to count money. I find it very depressing. What's depressing about counting money? I asked, unable to follow the logic of Henry's argument. You don't understand, Henry answered. I enjoy counting my own money, but I hate counting other people's.
61. Success. Success in life depends to a great extent on what we mean by success. To some people, money is the only real indication of achievement in the modern world, and therefore, their estimation of success is based on the state of their bank balance and the power that goes with it. Their life is devoted to making money, and they are at a loss to understand people whose ideas are different from their own. There are people, however, who consider their lives successful if they're doing what they enjoy doing that may not bring them any great financial reward. A man who spends his time gardening might consider himself successful if the flowers blossomed and his trees gave fruit. And nursing, teaching, running a youth club all bring their own kind of success to those engaged in them. Success can be found in painting a picture nobody will ever see. sailing a boat, watching the stars, collecting stamps. Almost anything that involves personal endeavor can give you a sense of success. The great thing is to believe that success is not necessarily public.
62. Young mother applicants. When will employers learn to treat job applicants who happen to be mothers of young children as they would treat other applicants? I wonder how many mothers like myself have faced an interviewer who seemed more concerned with the applicant's private life than with their ability to do the job. The job that I applied for involved evening work. My interviewer was not inquisitive enough to ask who would care for my child while I worked, but he had the boldness to ask, "Won't your husband mind looking after him?" I doubt if any husbands who go for the job interviews are asked if they mind looking after children 5 days a week while they work. Yet intelligent women must put up with this insane questioning. My private life has nothing to do with the interviewer. Even if it had, a child has 2 parents, and I believe they should share in her or his upbringing. Only the totally inadequate mother would apply for a job without being confident that her children wouldn't suffer by it. It's hard enough in the country for parents to make acceptable arrangements for their children while they work. So, if a young mother can manage to work a few hours a week, why not give her credit for it? Mothers like myself who have undergone a lengthy education at the taxpayer's expense should not be prevented from using that education productively by narrow-minded employers.
63.
The world's first woman doctor. In early days, no medical college took a woman student. Elizabeth Blackwell was determined to become a doctor. The young American wrote again and again to a number of medical colleges, asking if she could be admitted. But each time the answer was no. Then one day, to her surprise, she got a letter from the president of a college in Geneva, which said yes. At first, Geneva College, like other colleges, was not willing to accept Liza. But later, the important people of that college learned that Liza's application had the support of a famous doctor, and they were afraid to offend that man. So the president decided to play a trick by turning the matter over to the students' general meeting of the college, thinking that the students would be the last to agree to take Liza. When the student body met, most students took no interest in the matter. Of the rest, some considered the young American's idea interesting, and some thought by having Liza, they would be proud of their college, training the world's first woman doctor. Very soon, the students all agreed to accept Liza. The president of Geneva College was of course very sorry to learn this. Seeing that he could do nothing to Elizabeth, he gave in. 64.
What did he eat? Isaac Newton, the great British scientist, was often so deep in his thoughts that he would forget to eat his dinner. One day, a friend of his came to dine with him. Dinner was put on the table, but Newton did not come out of his study. His friend, who was used to Newton's peculiar ways, sat down and waited for him. After waiting for quite a good while, he decided that Newton must have been so deep in some new theory that he had forgotten all about his dinner. He therefore began eating the dinner without waiting for Newton, and helped himself to the chicken which was on the table. When he had finished, he thought he would play a trick on his friend. He put all the chicken bones back on the dish and covered that with the dish cover. Then he quietly left Newton's house. He was quite certain that his trick would work. Several hours later, Newton came out of his study, feeling very hungry. He saw the table had been set for dinner, and so he sat down at his place. When he lifted the cover and saw the bones of the chicken, he was greatly surprised. He turned, looked at the clock, and saw that it was long past his usual time for dinner. "Well, well," he said to himself, "I thought I had not dined, but I'm mistaken." Getting up from the table, he went back to his study and began to work again, thinking that he had eaten his dinner at the usual hour and had forgotten all about it. 65. Color and life. Color can not only reflect one's personality, but also influence one's mood. What color do you like? Do you like yellow, orange, or red? If you do, you must be an optimist, a leader, an active person who enjoys life, people, and excitement. Do you prefer grays or blues? Then you are probably quiet, shy, and you would rather follow than lead. You tend to be a pessimist. At least, this is what psychologists tell us. They have been seriously studying the meaning of color preference, as well as the effect that colors have on human beings. They tell us that we don't choose our favorite color as we grow up. We are born with our preference. If you happen to love brown, you did so as soon as you opened your eyes, or at least as soon as you could see clearly. Colors do influence our moods, and there is no doubt. A yellow room makes most people feel more cheerful and more relaxed than a dark green one. And a red dress brings warmth and cheer to the saddest winter day. On the other hand, black is depressing. A black bridge over the Thames River near London used to be the scene of more suicides than any other bridges in the area, until it was repainted green. The number of suicide attempts immediately fell sharply. Perhaps they would have fallen even more if the bridge had been done in pink or baby blue.
66.
Human brain. Man has a big brain. He can think, learn, and speak. Scientists used to think that men are different from animals because they can think and learn. They know now that animals can learn. Dogs, rats, birds, and worms can learn. So scientists are beginning to understand that men are different from animals because they can speak. Animals cannot speak. They make noises when they are afraid, or angry, or unhappy. Apes are our nearest cousins. They can understand some things more quickly than human beings, and one or two have learned a few words. But they are still different from us. They cannot join words and make sentences. They cannot think like us because they have no language. They can never think about the past or the future. Language is a wonderful thing. Man has been able to develop civilization because he has language. Every child can speak his own language very well when he is 4 or 5. But no animal learns to speak. How do children learn? Scientists do not know. They only know that man can speak because he has a big brain. 67.
A tidal wave. A tidal wave is a very large and very destructive wall of water that rushes in from the ocean toward the shore. Many scientists call these huge waves tsunami. In Japanese, tsunami means storm wave. But do you know that tidal waves are not caused by storms, and that they are not true tides at all? A true tide is the regular rise and fall of ocean waters at definite times each day, but a tidal wave comes rushing in suddenly and unexpectedly. A tidal wave is caused by an underwater earthquake. Scientists call the underwater earthquake a seaquake. The word seaquake is made up of 2 words, the word sea, which means ocean, and the word quake, which means to shake or to tremble. When a seaquake takes place at the bottom of the ocean floor shakes and trembles, and sometimes the ocean floor shifts. It is this shifting that produces the tidal wave. The tidal wave begins to move across the sea at great speed. Tidal waves have taken many human lives in the past. Today, scientists can predict when a tidal wave will hit land. They use a seismograph to do this. A seismograph is an instrument that records the strength, the direction, and the length of time of an earthquake or seaquake. It is not possible to hold back a tidal wave, but it is possible to warn people that a tidal wave is coming. This warning can save many lives. 68.
Clouds. A cloud consists of tiny drops of water or ice crystals or floats in the air. Clouds are grouped into classes according to their height above the ground. There are 3 major groups of clouds. There are low clouds, middle clouds, and high clouds. The low clouds float less than 6,000 feet or 1,800 meters above sea level. There are 2 kinds of low clouds. The 2 kinds of low clouds consist of stratus and stratocumulus clouds. The stratus clouds cover the sky like a white blanket. They bring rain or snow. The stratocumulus clouds cover the sky with large clouded masses. The middle clouds usually lie from 6,000 to 20,000 feet above sea level, or about 1,800 to 6,100 meters above sea level. Middle clouds are grouped into 3 subclasses. They are grouped into altostratus, altocumulus, and nimbostratus. An altostratus cloud forms a smooth white sheet across the sky. Nimbostratus forms a smooth gray layer across the sky. In the third category of clouds are the high clouds. High clouds are found 20,000 feet above the earth or higher. There are two kinds of high clouds. They are cirrus clouds and cirrostratus clouds. All high clouds are formed entirely of ice crystals. The middle and low clouds are mainly water droplets. No two clouds are exactly the same. They are always changing their shape or form. Clouds are interesting to scientists, to artists, and to picnickers. 69. The Mystery of Diamond. The diamond is considered the most famous and valuable jewel in the world. Diamonds were made as a result of great volcanic heat and pressure. A volcano is a mountain with a hole in the top. When a volcano is very active, it sometimes explodes and causes great damage. Diamonds were pushed towards the surface of the earth millions of years ago by a great number of volcanic explosions. It is in the narrow volcanic pipes that diamonds are found. They are also found among the sand and stones of certain riverbeds, and a few places on the floor of the sea, for they are washed down the mountainsides by the rain. Diamonds are very rare. There are not many diamond pipes or diamond-producing rivers in the world. During the last century, adventurers from Europe went to Brazil because they had heard that there are diamonds in the river Amazon. Many of these early diamond miners died of illness or were lost forever in the great forests. But some returned home rich. The earliest known diamonds were found in India many centuries ago. The most recent exciting discoveries have been made in eastern Russia. But most of the world's diamonds now come from Congo, from Tanzania, which has the largest diamond mine in the world, and from South Africa.
70. Men and Nature. Our environment is being polluted faster than nature and man's present efforts can prevent it. Time is bringing us more people, and more people will bring us more industry, more motor vehicles, large cities, and the growing use of man-made materials. What can explain and solve this problem? The fact is that pollution is caused by man, by his desire for a modern way of life. We make increasing industrialization our chief aim. For its sake, we are willing to sacrifice everything: clean air, pure water, good food, our health, and the future of our children. There is a constant flow of people from the countryside into the cities, eager for the benefits of modern society. But as our technological achievements have grown in the last 20 years, so pollution has become a serious problem. Isn't it time we stop to ask ourselves where we are going and why? It reminds me of the story about the airliner pilot who told his passengers over the loudspeaker, "I've some good news and some bad news. The good news is that we're making rapid progress at 530 miles per hour. The bad news is that we're lost and don't know where we're going. The sad fact is that this becomes a true story when applied to our modern society.
71. Air. The Earth is surrounded by a large quantity of air called the atmosphere. This atmosphere, which is about 900 kilometers thick, exists everywhere. Without it, the Earth would be too hot in the day and too cold at night. All living things on Earth are dependent on air. We can live on for a few days without food and water, but we cannot live for more than a few minutes without air. When we are working or running, we need more air, so we breathe faster than usual. When we are asleep, we need less air, so we breathe slower. Fresh air can make people energetic and healthy. Dirty air, on the other hand, can make people sick or even cause death. But it is a pity that the air is now seriously polluted. Many factories in big cities send smoke and other harmful chemical substances into the air. Cars and buses in the streets also give out their exhaust. Although some important steps have been taken, yet this problem still remains unsolved. We sincerely hope that we will never see the black smoke in the sky in the near future.
72.
The Protector of Nature. John James Audubon was born in 1785 and died in 1851, but his name is still spoken today. Audubon was a scientist who loved nature. He wanted to show people the importance of nature in their lives. He was especially interested in birds and painted many beautiful pictures of them. In 1905, the National Audubon Society was formed by people who were also interested in birds and wanted to continue Audubon's nature studies. Even now, when people think of the Audubon Society, they usually think of birds. But the Society does other things besides watching birds. The members of the Society try to improve the environment as much as they can. They let the public know about laws that are needed. They have helped to pass many laws that protect birds and animals, and people too. They teach young people how to protect their environment. They try to make their own communities cleaner, better places to live in. John James Audubon knew that nature was important. He did not know how important his work would become. 73.
Difference between male and female shoppers. Shopping for clothes is not the same experience for a man as it is for a woman. A man goes shopping because he needs something. His purpose is settled and decided in advance. He knows what he wants, and his aim is to find it and buy it. The price is a secondary consideration. All men simply walk into a shop and ask the assistant for what they want. The job can be, and often is, completed in less than 5 minutes, with hardly any small talk to someone's satisfaction. Now, how does a woman go about buying clothes? In almost every respect, she does so in the opposite way. Her shopping is not often based on need. She has never fully made up her mind what she wants, and she is only having a look around. She will try on any number of things. The most important thing in her mind is the thought of finding something that everyone thinks suits her. Most women have an excellent sense of value when they buy clothes. They are always ready for the unexpected bargain. Faced with a room full of dresses, a woman may easily spend an hour going from one shelf to another before selecting the dresses she wants to try on. It is a long and hard job, but obviously one to be enjoyed. Most dress shops provide chairs for the waiting husbands. 74. Home. Home is a word that can mean different things. Home can be a tree, a cave, a boat, a hole in the ground, a house in the country, or an apartment in a tall building. People living in different places have different homes because the weather conditions vary. The material used by them for building homes are always easily available. For instance, prehistoric people usually made use of raw material around them, such as tree branches or stones and rocks. Those people who lived in hot, flat places could live in ground holes, and those who lived in the mountains were usually able to find large caves. Although holes in the ground and mountain caves were not the most wonderful homes that ever existed, the people who lived in them were probably happy. And that's the most important thing about home. It doesn't have to be huge and beautiful. It can be in the city or the country. Home is a place that means peace and comfort and love to the people who live there.
75.
A new basketball time record. Recently, a group of 17-year-old schoolboys decided to beat the world basketball time record. They aim to play for 90 hours and add 6 hours to the record. How could 18 boys play for almost 4 days without stopping? The boys decided that each person would play for 2.5 hours and then rest for 2 hours. They had to be able to sleep near the basketball hall, and they needed hot food and drink day and night. Finally, they started at 6 o'clock one evening. The first night was very hard for the players. When it was their turn to rest, they were too excited to fall asleep at once. After sleeping for a short time, they had to play again. The nights were very long when nobody was watching. The days were better because plenty of people cheered the players' efforts. On the second night, they fell asleep as soon as they stopped. Some of them had trouble with their hands and feet, but the only serious problem was a mental one. Each boy was thinking, "What am I doing here? How can I play any longer?" After the third night, the players knew they could finish the 90 hours. On the fourth night, the play was very slow, but in the final hours it got better. For the last few minutes, the players looked as fresh as they started. They were tired, but very happy.
76.
Talking about sports.
What about cycling?
Well, as you can see, cycling is one of the most pleasant forms of physical exercise, especially cycling in the country.
Why do you like that?
Because of the fresh air. Besides, cycling tests our endurance.
What about country sports? Do you like them?
Do you mean sports like hunting, shooting, and fishing?
Yes.
I don't approve of killing animals for sport, and I don't approve of boxing and bullfighting either. I don't call these real sports.
Lots of people would disagree with you.
No doubt, but I still don't like them.
What about aquatic sports? Do you like sailing?
Yes, it's a marvelous sport. I also like swimming, and I'm very fond of rowing. For me, the great sporting event of the year is the boat race. I watch that every year with great pleasure.
So do I.
77.
Food. People in different parts of the world have different ideas about what is good to eat. If you were an Eskimo near the North Pole, you would enjoy the raw meat from seals. If you were a nomad in the desert, you would prefer the roasted meat of sheep and goats. Americans cook the meat of many different animals, but perhaps their favorite meal is steak. Americans also eat a lot of chicken, as well as fish and other foods from the sea. Some people in India do not eat beef at all. People in different parts of the world also have different ideas about what is good to drink. Among the population in Northern Europe and in the Middle East, some people put cream and sugar in their coffee. But in the United States, many people drink their coffee black, that is, without cream or sugar. Tea is the national drink in China and Japan. In these countries, people drink tea without sugar. But in England, where it is also a national drink, many people use both sugar and hot or cold milk in their tea. 78. Some customs in Britain. The British have the habit of queuing. If you have watched a TV news program about Britain or have seen an English film, you probably know of the people lining up one after another, getting on the bus, getting on the train, or buying something, such as a newspaper. There is seldom any jumping of the queue. If somebody jumps the queue, the British people look down upon him or her. They think that he or she is ill-bred and take a remarkably dim view of such behavior. In England, you should never ask a woman her age. Women do not like others to know their ages. They think it is very impolite of you to ask their ages. Don't try to bargain in Britain when you do shopping. The British do not expect or welcome bargaining. Sometimes they consider it losing face. If it is a question of some expensive artwork or a large quantity of antique furniture or silver, you might try to work out a sensible overall price with your salesman. The British people seldom bargain. They just buy what they want at what they think a reasonable price and take such a practice for granted.
79. When a baby is born. A birth, the world over, is regarded as a happy occasion, and in the West, the birth of a girl is welcomed with an enthusiasm equal to that over a boy. Before the birth, it is not polite for anyone except very close friends to talk about the coming event. But as soon as the baby is born, anyone may send a card or a note of greetings and congratulations to the mother or to the parents. It may or may not be accompanied by flowers, fruit, or dainties for the mother, or a gift for the child. In China, there is nothing more appropriate to give a new foreign baby than something typically Chinese, such as Chinese babies wear. The foreign mother in China keeps the little Chinese cap or shoes or bracelet given to her child by her Chinese friends as a treasured keepsake long after the baby has stopped wearing it, putting it away in a box to give back to him when he is grown up, in memory of his early years in China and his Chinese friends.
80. Ladies first. The forms of respecting the weaker sex that social custom keeps as treasures might be called the respecting ploy. The apparent function of the ploy is to proclaim the moral superiority of women by giving them benefits once reserved for royalty. Giving up one's seat, opening doors, pulling out chairs, and rising when a woman enters the room. The ploy's hidden intention, however, is quite different. Over the centuries, such pleasant things have tendered women, kept them in their high place, and maintained the convenient, for men, social fiction that females cannot perform real labor, and so need not be paid adequately for the labor they do perform. If the little woman cannot open a door for herself, it's certainly not necessary to make her salary more than 60% of a man's. The effect of the respecting ploy was not, of course, always obvious. In the days when the ploy was used most widely, the females to whom these social courtesies were extended did not, in fact, know how to work. As the daughters of wealth, their function was to manage the fortunes their husbands earned. Women who worked were by definition members of the lower ranks morally as well as socially. It is not an accident that the expression working girl, which today means a professional prostitute, recently meant any woman with a job.
81.
Comfortable distance between people. Unconsciously, we all keep a comfortable distance around us when we interact with other people. This space between us and another person forms invisible walls. The amount of space changes depending on the nature of the relationship. For example, we are usually more comfortable standing closer to family members than to strangers. Personality also determines the size of the area with which we are comfortable when talking to people. Introverts often prefer to interact with others at a greater distance than do extroverts. Cultural styles are important too. A Japanese employer and employee usually stand farther apart while talking than their American counterparts. Latin Americans and Arabs tend to stand closer than Americans do when talking. For Americans, the usual distance in social conversation ranges from about an arm's length to 4 feet. Less space in the American culture may be associated with either greater intimacy or aggressive behavior. The common practice of saying, "Excuse me," for the slightest accidental touching of another person reveals how uncomfortable Americans are if people get too close. In cultures where close physical contact is acceptable and even desirable, Americans may be perceived as cold and distant. 82.
Manners matter. Good manners are knowing the right thing to do and say at the right time. If you have good manners, you will have more fun when you are with people. This is true whether you're at school or going out to dinners or on board a bus. Good manners make a big difference in your social life. Manners are important for both men and women and are very practical. Sometimes manners can count more than anything else in the first impression you make. They help you to make new friends and to get along well with people. Good manners such as a nice smile, a cheerful hello, or a short thank you reveal your good breeding and help clear up misunderstanding. You'll not get along very well without good manners, because good manners are willingly accepted by the public, while bad manners are disliked everywhere. Good manners need constant development. You should always observe and learn good manners from other people in different situations. What's more, you must also practice good manners yourself and keep it until they become part of you. 83.
Is that your brother? The man standing near the table?
Oh, yes, my brother, Ben. You know him?
No, I mean you look similar to him.
Do you think so?
In fact, you have different hairstyles. He is fashionable, yours is formal.
And Ben's isn't curly, like mine.
No, but your faces are like twins. No difference.
I don't think so. His eyes are a different colour to mine. His eyes are blue, and mine are brown.
Yes, I'm not talking about the eye colour. I mean the shape of your faces. His face is longer, yes, but you have the same mouths and the same noses.
Look, he is fatter than me.
Maybe, and he isn't as tall as you.
Absolutely.
Are your personalities the same?
No, we have no similarities at all. Ben is a humorous and sociable person. He makes everyone like him by his sense of humour. I'm quieter. I do not have as many friends as Ben.
You must have some things in common.
Well, we both like playing football and playing the guitar, and we're both optimistic. We like watching the same TV programmes, have the same taste in food, and we have similar political opinions. I suppose we have those things in common. What about you? Do you have a brother or a sister?
84.
Should I take off my shoes? Different countries have different manners. Before entering a house in some Asian countries, it is good manners to take off your shoes. In European countries, even though shoes sometimes become very muddy, this is not done. A guest in a Chinese house never finishes a drink. He leaves a little to show that he has had enough. In a Malay house, too, a guest always leaves a little food. In England, a guest always finishes a drink to show that he has enjoyed it. Here are some examples of the things that a well-mannered person does or does not do. He never laughs at people when they are in trouble. Instead, he tries to help them. He is always kind either to people or to animals. When people are waiting for a bus, he takes his turn. He does not rush to the front of the queue. In the bus, he gives his seat to an old person or a lady who is standing. If he accidentally bumps into someone or gets in their way, he says, "Excuse me," or "I'm sorry." He says please when making a request, and thank you when he receives something. He stands up when speaking to a lady or an old person, and he does not sit down until the other person is seated. 85. Say goodbye to insomnia. Insomnia is the inability to sleep fully. It is a problem to nearly everyone at some time. A person may be awake for an hour in the middle of the night, and then, the next morning, feel that he hardly slept all night. If insomnia happens very often, it is important to find its possible causes and try to correct them. Any of a large number of simple factors may make it difficult for someone to fall asleep. His mattress may be too soft or too hard. If there are too many blankets on a hot night, he may be too warm. If the blanket is too light, he may feel cold during the night. The bedroom itself may be too hot or too cold. Drinks, such as tea or coffee, can also keep people awake. Inability to fall asleep sometimes has something to do with emotional or mental disorder. The cause of insomnia may be easy to correct. The person should check the mattress and bedroom temperature and make any necessary changes. He should relax for an hour or two before bedtime, perhaps by reading a book, watching television, or taking a warm bath. Above all, he should try not to worry about sleeplessness. When someone is tired enough, he nearly always falls asleep.
86.
Pregnancy smoking. American doctors say mothers who smoke cigarettes may slow the growth of their children's lungs. They said reduced lung growth could cause the children to suffer breathing problems and lung disease later in life. Doctors studied more than 1,100 children between the ages of 5 and 9. The mothers of some of the children smoked, The other mothers did not. Doctors tested the children once a year for 5 years to see how fast their lungs were growing. The test measured the amount of air the children could blow out of their lungs in 1 second. Children should be able to blow out more air each year because their lung power increases as their lungs developed. But the doctors found that the lungs of the children whose mothers smoked had not developed as fast as they should. In fact, they were 7% less developed than the lungs of children whose mothers did not smoke. Doctors are not sure when the mother's smoking affected the children's lungs. They say it could have happened before birth because the mothers smoked during pregnancy, or it could have happened later when the children breathed smoke-filled air at home. Doctors also are not sure if reduced lung growth will affect the children's overall health when they are adults. But they do know that children whose mothers smoked develop 20% more colds, influenza, than other children. So doctors feel there is a greater danger that such children will develop serious lung and breathing diseases later in life. 87. Dealing with stress. The problems that come with high levels of stress can cause serious complications and illness, and therefore it seems wise for people to know how to cope with the stress that modern society imposes. Of course, there are many reactions to stress. Some people eat or drink to excess. Some spend hours on the phone, or email all their friends to clear their minds, and others adopt that age-old remedy for repressed feelings, to scream loudly. People's ways of dealing with stress range from distressing, self-destructive behaviors to the downright odd. I found that the most effective methods of stress relief are singing and dancing. I felt this strongly while watching disco-goers lost in the latest dance craze. People of different ages and occupations gain pleasure together at the singing coffee shop. You can see it in the expressions on their faces when they are singing. The sources of stress and the reactions to it differ from person to person, and so, inevitably, there is a vast range of different solutions and coping strategies. But what is clearly important is that everyone be able to recognize stress and cope with it effectively before it develops into a major problem.
88. Fearing death. Some old people are oppressed by the fear of death. In the young, there is a justification for the feeling. Young men who have reason to fear that they will be killed in battle may justifiably feel bitter in the thought that they have been cheated of the best things that life has to offer. But in an old man who has known human joys and sorrows, and has achieved whatever work it was in him to do, the fear of death is somewhat abject and ignoble. The best way to overcome it, it seems to me, is to make your interests gradually wider and more impersonal, until bit by bit the walls of the ego recede and your life becomes increasingly merged in the universal life. An individual man's existence should be like a river, small at first, narrowly contained within its banks, and rushing passionately past boulders and over waterfalls. Gradually, the river grows wider, the banks recede, the waters flow more quietly, and in the end, without any visible break, they become merged in the sea and painlessly lose their individual being. The man who, in old age, can see his life in this way will not suffer from the fear of death, since the things he cares for will continue. And if with the decay of vitality, weariness increases, the thought of rest will not be unwelcome. I should wish to die while still at work, knowing that others will carry on what I can no longer do, and content in the thought that what was possible has been done.
89. On drugs. People's attitudes toward drugs vary from person to person. Some regard them as miracles. Others think of them as dangerous. Then what is the sensible attitude toward drugs? I think the first thing to think about is the difference between drugs and wonder drugs. The major diseases threatening Americans today are cancer, stroke, high blood pressure, etc. Against them, the doctor's bag of tricks is limited. He has no wonder drugs. So the first important lesson is not to expect too much from drugs. If you can accept the fact that the war against many of our most devastating diseases is, at best, a holding operation rather than an inevitable triumph, it will do a great deal to ease your own life as well as that of your doctor. Too many patients exert great pressures on doctors to prescribe for every syndrome, even when such treatment is unwanted or dangerous. Unfortunately, the medical profession is guilty of taking part, to a certain degree, in the wrongful action. The patient who demands a shot of penicillin for every sniffle and sneeze may be given the injection by a reluctant physician because he is certain that if he does not, the patient will search until he finds a doctor who will.
90.
Dream. People dream 4 to 6 times a night. They dream while they are in the REM stage of sleep, which means rapid eye movement stage in one sleep. Sleepers go into the REM stage about every 30 minutes. The first dream of the night may last about 10 minutes. Each dream goes a little longer. The last dream of the night may be an hour long. People need their dreams. Younger children spend more time dreaming. Babies spend almost half of their sleep in the REM stage. One experiment showed that everyone needed to dream. Doctors gave some people sleeping pills. These sleeping pills didn't let them go to REM sleep. After a few nights without dreams, they began to feel bad. They became angry easily, they worried a lot, and they wanted to fight with everyone. Then they stopped taking the sleeping pills. They all began to dream all night for a few nights to catch up. Why do people dream? Dreams give them time to find the answers to some of their problems. If they think they will have difficult problems the next day, they may spend more time on REM sleep the night before. In their dreams, they may find an answer to their problems. 91. Healthy eating. In the Western world, people used to be greatly dependent on convenience foods, frozen peas, tinned meat and fish, ready-to-eat meals from the supermarket, anything which is quick to prepare, looks more or less appetizing, and satisfies the immediate hunger. Increasingly, over the past decade, people have become aware of the need to change their eating habits, for much of the particularly processed food they eat is not good for the health. As a result, natural foods, foods that do not contain chemical additives and have not been affected by chemical fertilizers, are gaining a growing popularity among health-aware people. Natural foods, for example, are vegetables, fruits, and grains having grown in soil that is rich in organic matter. This soil has been nourished by unused vegetable matter, which provides it with essential vitamins and minerals. This in itself is a natural process compared with the use of chemicals and fertilizers. the main purpose of which is to increase the amount rather than the quality of foods grown in commercial farming areas. Natural foods also include animals which have been fed and allowed to move freely in healthy pastures. Compare this with what happens in the mass production of poultry. There are computer monitoring farms where thousands of chickens live together and are fed on food which is little better than rubbish. Chickens kept in this way are not only tasteless as food, but also produce eggs lacking vitamins.
92.
There are many popular leisure time activities, but one of the most enjoyable is family time. Most people enjoy being with their families. There are many things to do with your family too. Families can go to the movies, travel, visit museums, and play sports together. The most common family activity is probably camping. Many families like camping. It is a chance for the whole family to work together. They can stay in the wild. Children collect dry wood for the fire. Their parents set up the tents. Then the whole family gathers around the fire. They enjoy a special meal together. Then they set off into the woods with a compass and a map. After hiking the trails, everyone gets a fishing pole. Each person casts the fishing line out into the river. Who gets the biggest fish? It's a great contest. Later, the children clean the fish by the river. They take the scales off the fish. Mum fries the fish over the campfire. Dad cleans up when everyone finishes. You don't want wild animals coming to eat your leftovers. Then everyone goes into their tents for a restful night. While there are many things that families can do together, camping is probably the most exciting.
93. An open university. Some students at the Open University left school 20 years ago. Others are younger, but all must be at least 21 years old. This is one example of how the Open University is different from all other universities. Its students must either work full-time or be at home all day, for instance, mothers of families. They don't have to pass any examinations before they are accepted as students. This is why the university is called open. The university was started in order to help a known group, people who missed having a university education when they were young. The first name for the Open University was the University of the Air. The idea was to teach on the air, in other words, on radio and television. Most of the teaching is done like this. Radio and television have brought the classroom into people's homes. But this, on its own, is not enough for a university education. The Open University student also receives advice at one of 283 study centers in the country. During 36 weeks of the year, he has to send written work to a tutor, the person who guides his studies. He must also spend 3 weeks every summer as a full-time student. Tutors and students meet and study together, as in other universities. At the end of the Open University's first year, the results were good. 3 out of every 4 university students passed their examinations. If they do this every year, they will finish their studies in 4 or 5 years.
94. Reading. Reading is very important for enriching one's knowledge. If people who can read don't keep reading, they will only have an empty mind. The world is changing rapidly. Great progress is made in every field. Different people have different experiences and opinions about everything. All these can be written in books. The books are treasures of human race. Reading makes people not only wise, but also informed. There are so many books in the world. Even if a person read all his life and didn't do anything else, he couldn't read all the books published. On the other hand, some books are not useful. Some books are even harmful. Therefore, it is quite necessary for everyone who begins to read to choose good books. The books chosen should be beautiful in both content and language. Another thing that one should pay attention to is the method used when reading books. Some books that are useful to one's profession should be read attentively and repeatedly. If the book belongs to the person, he can even make marks in the margin of each page, writing down his own opinions. Some books are only fancy stories, and we can just read them in our leisure time. In this way, we can obtain and enjoy what is interesting from most of the books we read.
95. My first day at college. September 8th, 1991 was my first day at college. Everything on campus appeared especially bright and fresh. Although 13 years have passed, I can still remember that significant day clearly as if it had happened yesterday. In the morning, I went through the registration procedures, got a school badge, a student card, and the textbooks for the first semester. In the afternoon, I attended the orientation program. While touring the campus, we were told the history of the college in which we take pride. We visited the library with a beautifully decorated lobby. We were shown the physics department building and the classrooms where we were going to attend classes. When I lay on bed that night, I thought that at last I was really a college student and my childhood dream had come true. At the same time, I felt the great responsibility on my shoulder. I was determined to make the most of my college days, to receive education, to cultivate good behavior, to improve my health, and to get rich knowledge so that I could serve my countrymen.
96. The heavy bags of school children. Have you noticed that the students' bags are growing heavier and heavier, including not only those of the middle school children, but also those of the primary school children? What are inside these bags? In addition to textbooks, there are various kinds of reference books and exercise books, bought both by the teachers and the parents. Each day, the students usually spend 2 or more hours in doing their homework, and their parents sometimes would give them some additional work to do. What a heavy burden the children are bearing. Will their study be improved by the heavy bags and homework? It is right that practice makes perfect, yet there should be a limit. Too much pressure may lead to opposite effects. One's energy and time are limited, especially young children. They need to play and amuse themselves. Furthermore, a good student should not only achieve good marks in academic subjects, but also have varied interests and abilities. Teachers and parents should encourage them to cultivate different interests besides their study. We all know that all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I hope that all the teachers and parents could understand the children and give them more free time to enjoy what their age endows them with.
97.
My opinion of today's education. I think one of the main problems with today's education is that too much emphasis is placed on test score. It has become the most important criterion for college enrollment. A student, however creative and intelligent, will not be admitted into a college if his total score is just 1 point less than required. It is also one of the crucial factors either in job assignment or in employment competitions. The competition for high scores among students becomes intense. Students find themselves concentrating more on strategies to achieve high scores than on acquiring the knowledge. They will play tricks on some courses, skip over the substance which will not be tested on, even pamper teachers for hints on upcoming exams. Teachers are apt to give their students high scores, as their job is judged mainly by the students' performance in terms of scores. Some teachers tend to set easy papers to test their students on or narrow down the scope of the exam. Some teachers even leak accidentally the exam questions or lower their criterion of scoring. As a result, the competition for high scores becomes so intense that it actually defeats the academic goals of education. 98.
Studying abroad. Studying abroad is an excellent way for students to learn about themselves and the world in which they live. When studying in a foreign country, students will interact with people from different cultures. By doing so, they will experience the characteristics of a distant culture and see the similarities and differences. They will have chances to visit places about which they've previously known only through lectures and textbooks, and to learn at least some of the native languages as well. Not only will students learn more about the world, but they will also discover more about themselves. Through seeing how others live, students will probably think more about their own lives. In doing so, they will evaluate their own values and consider their appropriate place in the world. Finally, studying abroad would bring them practical benefit. With this kind of experience listed on a resume, prospective employers may be impressed to know that this applicant can survive in a different environment. Thus, this person is likely to accept any challenging tasks. This is certainly a general characteristic for which employees search in a job applicant. Studying abroad is a very useful way to enhance one's educational experience. It fosters knowledge about oneself as well as the outside world. 99.
It is unwise to cancel examinations. As the calling for a quality-oriented educational system is getting increasingly strong, the cancellation of exams has found a good number of advocates who tend to base their opinion on the fact that tests don't tell the whole story. As a teacher of 10 years professional experience, I have found that a student who earns good marks is generally a good student, and that a student's final mark in a subject is usually a grade average of the year's work. Of course, there are exceptions, but they do not have the frequency that would give an unfair picture of a student's ability. Besides, there is no acceptable substitute for competition and examination of quality. How can teachers and future employers determine what a student has learned and remembered? Should we simply take the student's word for it? Any institution that liberates students from fair exams is misguided, if not ignorant. When all is said and done, I sense that a fear of failure and a fear of unpleasant comparison with others is at the bottom of most ban exams talk. Excellence and quality fear nothing. On the contrary, they seek competition and desire the satisfaction of being the best. 100.
Practice makes perfect. We all know that practice makes perfect is a very popular saying both in Chinese and in English. It means that when you want to learn some knowledge, You have to repeat them many times, and then you may remember what you learn. Also, we can say the more you know something, the better you can do it. Whether we study or work, those words are very useful to us. We can take English study as an example. When we want to learn some new words or some good sentences by heart, we will read them and write them again and again until we can recite them. Sometimes it will take up a lot of time for us to remember, but once we remembered, we can use them skillfully. Whereas, when you are afraid that you cannot remember some words, and you do not want to try your best, you will not remember them well. However, when you take an English examination and come across some words, meanings, and usage you don't understand, what will you feel at that time? You must feel regret. So English study means that you have to practice more and more. Still, we can look at another example in learning. When we have heard the same story for many times, we can remember it very well, and we can recite it to others. At the same time, we can also imagine some stories according to what we have heard. So, in our study and life, we should bear in our minds the sentence, "Practice makes perfect." In this way, we can study well and live a better life. 101.
So, Michael, what sport do you play?
I play badminton, football, boxing and tennis, but football is my favourite because it's a team game, so you can play it with your friends and enjoy teamwork.
It is quite a competitive game as well, right?
Yeah, it's a competitive game, and that's another reason why I really enjoy it.
I know it is really exciting to watch a football match. Is it exciting to play it?
Yeah, definitely. Run, pass, kick and score. Oh, that's wonderful.
Where do you play then?
I play at local stadiums and sort of play in international youth football tournaments around Asia.
You mentioned you played in international youth tournaments. Now do you do quite well in the tournaments?
Yeah, I've played for Hanoi Youth Football Club and we've got through to the semi-finals of different Vietnam tournaments. And for under 19, my other football team, we've actually won a few championships. So yeah, I've done quite well.
Oh, well done. What are the important qualities of a football player?
Well, first of all, you need to have the knowledge of the game, the skill, mental ability and fitness.
What do you mean by the skill?
The player should have good vision to receive and to pass the ball well. A good player will be able to maintain technical efficiency while they are under pressure.
Pressure?
Yes, the pressure is from the movement of the ball, the time and the competitiveness of the other side.
It sounds like playing football is easy to get injured.
Yes, we've learnt many ways to prevent football injuries.
Yes, all right. So how often do you play football then, Michael?
Well, during the season, which is about September to June, I play 4 times a week. 2 of those are trainings and 2 of those are matches.
102.
The written test. The written test is an effective way of measuring a learner's competence. Every year, tens of thousands of students take part in the entrance examination in the written form for admission to college. Many others take part in written tests for getting a job for further study. Generally speaking, people are satisfied with this form of test because it is fair to all and can be well prepared. The test is usually designed by experts who work diligently through a strict pre-test. There are, however, some limits to its effectiveness. Some abilities, such as the ability to communicate or to cooperate, cannot be examined in the written test. Yet, these abilities are of extreme importance. What's worse is that the popularity of the written test tends to make students focus too much on the study of books and ignore the development of their abilities in other ways. We can make an examination more accurate by having some additional tests in other forms. For instance, we can hold interviews. We can also ask the students to deliver speeches and hold a debate. When we combine all these scores together, I believe we will have a fairer and more effective assessment of the participants. 103.
The teacher-student relationship. The relationship between a teacher and a student can be either good or bad, helpful or harmful. Either way, the relationship can affect the student for the rest of his life. A good teacher-student relationship will make learning enjoyable and interesting for the student, and will make the teacher's job worthwhile. A bad relationship can discourage the student from learning and make teaching an unpleasant task. In order to have a good teacher-student relationship, it is important that the teacher and the student respect each other. If the teacher is too strict, he frightens the student. The student will not learn well. On the other hand, if the teacher is too friendly, the student may become lazy and stop working as hard as possible. The teacher's attitude and approach should be in between. He should encourage the student without forcing or pushing him to learn. He needs patience and understanding. It is part of the teacher's job to help develop a good, positive attitude in his students. As for the student, in order to have a good relationship with his teacher, he must always show his proper respect. He should be eager to learn and willing to work hard. If he learns from the teacher modestly, he will be able to profit fully from his teacher's knowledge and assistance. In conclusion, a good teacher-student relationship can be mutually beneficial. The student gains knowledge eagerly and enjoyably, and the teacher gains satisfaction from his job.
Test 104. All about the moon. When the moon is not in its new phase, it can be seen on clear days or nights from anywhere on the surface of the Earth, if you know when to look. The moon is the Earth's only natural satellite and has never been given any other scientific name. The moon is about 384,403 kilometers from Earth and has an approximate diameter of 3,476 kilometers. The moon is actually believed to be slowly moving farther away from Earth at a rate of about 4 centimeters per year. The moon makes one full orbit around the Earth every 29.5 days. During this period, the moon enters a series of phases, which changes the amount of light reflected off its surface and its visible shape to the naked eye from Earth. The moon differs from most natural satellites of other planets in that its orbit is close to the plane of the ecliptic and not the Earth's equatorial plane. Exploration of the moon began in 1959 when the unmanned Luna 2 landed on its surface. Luna 2, closely followed by Luna 3 in late 1959, which obtained the first images of the occluded far side of the moon, and the first people to land on the moon, came aboard Apollo 11 on that historic night in 1969.
105. My Success. I wrote my first poem at the age of 8 or 9. My mother was extremely proud of me after reading it, but I was still anxious for my father's opinion. I wrote my poem out in my finest flourish, crayoned an elaborated border around it, and placed it on my father's plate on the dining table. My father returned rather late in an angry mood. He had been upset by a star who suddenly refused to act in the last scene of a film in the making. When he saw my poem, he read it and pronounced it lousy. This caused a quarrel between him and my mother, who insisted that I needed encouragement, not criticism. Somewhat humbled, I kept on composing poems without daring to show them to my father. When looking at my first poem again a few years later, I found it was really very lousy. But it was not until I became a professional writer that I began to see the beneficial interactions of the mother force and the father force. They had worked together to bring me success.
106. Ideals. An ideal guides people forward in their life journey, just as a beacon does ships on the sea. Many great figures in history achieved success because they all had lofty ideals. As a young man, Thomas Edison had an ideal of becoming an inventor, and he did become one. Florence Nightingale dreamed of becoming a nurse, and finally realized her dream. To have an ideal is to have a definite goal for one to strive for, and that will make one's life worth living. Different people may have different ideals, which may lead to different results. Many cherish peace, freedom, the prosperity of their nation, or the happiness of mankind. Their lofty ideals provide them with endless courage and energy to overcome difficulties and ensure their final happiness and success. Some people place money above everything else, and others take power as their ultimate goal. To realize their vulgar dreams will result in crime and degeneration. So it is important for one to have an ideal, but it is more important to have a good and lofty ideal, because only by fostering such an ideal and continuously striving for it can one ultimately lead a life of true value.
107. The use of dictionaries. Today, I'd like to talk to you about dictionaries because most of you have them, but don't use them very often. Whenever I ask people what a dictionary is for, they almost always say that it's to find the meaning of a word. That's only a small part of the answer. Sure, a dictionary will tell you the meaning of a word, but it will also give you an example to show you how the word is used in a sentence. It also tells you how to pronounce the word if you already know the meaning of the word. And this is very important, because if you can't say a word correctly, no one will understand you. Now think about when you are writing about something. Are you always sure about the spelling of every word? If not, what do you do? Do you write it the way you think it is spelt and hope it is correct? Or do you wait for someone to tell you the spelling? Or do you look for another word to use instead? What you should do is to open your dictionary and check to see your spelling is correct. If it isn't correct, think of another way a word might be spelt and check it out. Through guessing and checking, you will find the right spelling.
108. We need to broaden our knowledge. Our civilization is mainly attributed to the progress of science and technology. It is generally accepted that science and technology are the primary productive force. The development of our society is much more dependent on new science and technology than ever before, and it is hard to imagine what our life would be like without them. On the other hand, social sciences construct our spiritual buildings and make our life more diverse and meaningful. Natural sciences, no matter how advanced, cannot develop further without direction of philosophy and ethics, two chief branches of social sciences. In modern society, the relationship between social sciences and natural sciences has become more and more close, which leads to the emergence of many subjects. Therefore, as college students, we should learn any kind of knowledge as much as we can, not only to widen our horizon, but also to meet the requirements of modern society. With extensive knowledge, we can achieve our goals fully and make contributions to our country and the progress of the civilization of human beings.
109. Observe and learn. When young people get their real jobs, they may face a lot of new, confusing situations. They may find that everything is different from the way things were at school. It is also possible that they will feel uncomfortable in both professional and social situations. Eventually, they realize that university classes can't be the only preparation for all of the different situations that appear in the working world. Perhaps the best way to learn how to behave in working world is to identify a worker you admire and observe his behavior. In doing so, you'll be able to see what it is that you admire in this person. For example, you will observe how he acts in a trouble. Perhaps even more important, you will be able to see what is his approach to everyday situations. While you are observing your colleague, you should be asking yourself whether his behavior is like yours, and how you can learn from his response to a different situation. By watching and learning from a model, you will probably begin to identify and get good working habits.
110. Introduction of the Workbook. Hello, I'm Judy Henderson. Before we start our first lab, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the workbook we will be using. The first thing I'd like to point out is that the workbook contains a very large amount of material, far more than you could ever handle in a single semester. What you're supposed to do is to choose the experiment and activities that you want to do within a certain framework. Of course, part of my job is to help you make your choices. Next, I'd like to mention that in each workshop chapter, there are usually 2 subsections. The first is called experiments, and the second is called activities. In the experiment section, the workbook gives full instructions for all the experiments, including alternative procedures. You may use the procedures as you will on the basis of available equipment or personal preference. In the activities section, you will find suggestions for many experiments, exercises, and projects that you can do on your own time. You'll see that there are usually no detailed instructions for the activities. You are supposed to do them your own way. Okay, let's turn to Chapter 1 now. 111.
So, what are you going to do this summer?
Well, I'm probably going to go on vacation with my family for a week, but I think that I should get a summer job because I need to get some money. Actually, I haven't decided yet. What about you?
I'm going to Thailand for the summer. I'm going to work as a waitress in a Thai restaurant for 2 months.
Really? That sounds great. Is it a full-time job?
Yes. Actually, the work won't be very interesting. It'll be mostly taking orders, serving food and drinks, and dealing with bill payments. My manager is so generous to offer me $800 a month.
Great! I wish I could get a job with such a high salary like that. It'll be like a holiday, but you'll be earning money too.
Yes, it's a chance to go abroad and maybe meet some new people. I think that I won't be under job pressure because my hours are 5 hours per day, so I'll have plenty of time during the day to go walking.
How did you find out about it?
I read about it in a book called Summer Work Abroad. It tells you about all kinds of different jobs in different places. You can work as a shop assistant in Bangkok. They need people who can speak English well.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Yes, of course, the problem with that sort of work is that it is a part-time job, so you're paid hourly. And if you like it, you should apply now.
Oh, I haven't decided yet.
You know, within just 2 days, we have received more than 200 applications.
Okay, anyway, it's worth a try. Thank you, Lucy.
112.
Spelling or content. There is a popular belief among parents that schools are no longer interested in spelling. No school I have taught in has ever ignored spelling or considered it unimportant as a basic skill. There are, however, vastly different ideas about how to teach it, or how much priority it must be given over general language development and writing ability. The problem is how to encourage a child to express himself freely and confidently in writing without holding him back with the complexities of spelling. If spelling becomes the only focal point of his teacher's interest, clearly a bright child will be likely to play safe. He will tend to write only words within his spelling range, choosing to avoid adventurous language. That's why teachers often encourage the early use of dictionaries and pay attention to content rather than technical ability. I was once shocked to read on the bottom of a sensitive piece of writing about a personal experience, "This work is terrible. There are far too many spelling errors, and your writing is illegible." It may have been a sharp criticism of the pupil's technical abilities in writing, but it was also a sad reflection on the teacher who had omitted to read the essay, which contained some beautiful expressions of the child's deep feelings. The teacher was not wrong to draw attention to the errors, but if his priorities had centered on the child's ideas, an expression of his disappointment with the presentation would have given the pupil more motivation to seek improvement. 113.
Christmas, the spring festival of Westerners. In England, Christmas is the most important of all the bank holidays in the year. Two important things, apart from its religious significance, help to set this holiday apart from all others: the custom of giving gifts and the habit of spending it with the family. The custom of giving presents to one's family and friends is a very pleasant one, so long as one remembers that it is the spirit behind the gift which matters most, and not the gift itself. How good it is at Christmas to return to the family and meet parents, grandparents, and as many aunts, uncles, and cousins as can be accommodated. Without 20th century means of transport, many families would be denied the Christmas reunion. Christmas Day is spent quietly at home. The excitement of all the presents is hardly over before it is time for the traditional Christmas dinner: turkey, duck, or chicken, with rich, fruity Christmas pudding afterwards. At tea time, the crackers are pulled out. The evening is spent in games, merriment, and more eating and drinking. There is always Boxing Day, the bank holiday after Christmas Day, on which to recover, if all the excitement and food have proved a little too much. 114.
Live outside or inside London. Many people who work in London prefer to live outside it, and to go to their offices, factories, or schools every day by train, car, or bus, even though this means they have to get up earlier in the morning and reach home later in the evening. One advantage of living outside London is that houses are cheaper. Even a small flat in London without a garden costs a lot of rent. With the same money, one can get a little house in the country with a garden of one's own. Then, in the country, one can rest from the noise and hurry of the town. Even though one has to get up earlier, and spend more time in trains or buses, one can sleep better at night, and, during weekends and on summer evenings, one can enjoy the fresh, clean air of the country. If one likes gardens, one can spend one's free time digging, planting, watering, and doing 101 other jobs which are ready in a garden. Then, when the flowers and vegetables come up, one has the reward of one who has shared the secrets of nature. Some people, however, take no interest in country things. For them, happiness lies in the town. Such people would feel that their life was not worth living if they had to live it outside London. An occasional walk in one of the parks is all the country they want. The rest they are prepared to leave to those who are glad to get away from London every night. 115. Walt Disney World. If you are looking for a great place to spend your vacation, consider Walt Disney World. Walt Disney World is the most fantastic vacation destination in the world, covering an expanse of over 47 square miles. It includes 4 major theme parks, 3 water parks, a sports complex, 6 golf courses, a shopping center, and a nighttime entertainment complex. Walt Disney World has something for everyone: the theme park enthusiast, the naturalist, the sports enthusiast, the romantic, and the gourmet. Walt Disney World has both high technology and low technology, fantasy and reality. The gardens of Walt Disney World are gorgeous. Its transportation system is expensive and efficient. Disney's employees, known as cast members, are helpful and serve to make you, the guest, happy. Of course, the 4 major theme parks are the main attraction at Walt Disney World. The Magic Kingdom is a wonderful collection of adventure, heritage, fantasy, and science fiction. Walt Disney's dream of an experimental prototype community of tomorrow showcases both technology and world culture in a unique mix of attractions and exhibits. At the Disney Studios, you can see television and movie production and enjoy many of your favorite films and shows from the past, too. Animal Kingdom, Disney's newest, rounds out the foursome splendidly. In addition to major parks, 3 water parks and a handful of other attractions are available to resort guests. Blizzard Beach was Florida's first ski resort until the snow from the freak winter storm melted. Other minor attractions include Pleasure Island, a shopping, dining, and nightclub complex.
116. Eyesight regained. Robert Edwards was blinded in an automobile accident 9 years ago. He was also partially deaf because of old age. Last week, he was strolling near his home when a thunderstorm approached. He took refuge under a tree and was struck by lightning. He was knocked to the ground and woke up some 20 minutes later, lying face down in water below a tree. He went into the house and lay down in bed. A short time later, he awoke. His legs were numb, and he was trembling. When he opened his eyes, he could see the clock across the room fading in and out in front of him. When his wife entered, he saw her for the first time in 9 years. Doctors confirmed that he has regained his sight and hearing, apparently from the splash of lightning, but they are unable to explain the occurrence. The only possible explanation offered by one doctor was that, since Edwards lost his sight as a result of trauma in a terrible accident, perhaps the only way it could be restored was by another trauma.
117. The
mysterious disappearance. Some years ago, An American policeman found a woman lying near a lonely road. She did not appear to have had an accident, but she was trembling and clearly in a state of shock, so he rushed her to the nearest hospital. She began to tell the doctor on duty a story which was astonishing in all respects. She had been driving along a country road when she was stopped by a flying saucer landing in front of her. She had been forced to leave the car and enter the flying saucer by some creatures. These creatures looked like human beings and could easily make themselves understood, although they could not speak. It was as though they would read her thoughts and she could read theirs. They treated her politely and allowed her to leave after carrying out a number of tests on her. As she otherwise seemed to be normal, the doctor decided that she was probably suffering from the side effects of some drug. The woman insisted on being allowed to go home, but when she gave her address, it was in a town over 1,000 miles from the hospital. The police then started to make inquiries. They soon discovered that there was already a search going on for the woman, whose husband had reported that she had disappeared. Her car had been found with the driver's door open and the engine running. In front of the car, the surface of the road had been completely destroyed, not by an explosion or anything of that kind, but as though a large, circular, white-hot object had burnt through it. 118.
A large city without policemen. It is hard to imagine a large city without policemen, but such was the situation in London in the early part of the 18th century. There was no organized police force. There were only public watchmen, but they were generally feeble and old men, unfit for more strenuous assignment than calling "past 10 o'clock" and a cold, frosty morning. There were also constables appointed to keep the peace. From as far back as 1252, constables had been appointed for each parish in England, and the position was an honor. The constable was unpaid, however, and not expected to do more than carry out the law in country towns and villages, where the commonest crime was likely to be the theft of someone's clothes. In London, more serious crimes were committed. As the work of the constable became more dangerous, the men who should have done it paid others to do it for them. It was part of the constable's duty to raise the hue and cry after an escaping criminal. On hearing his cry, all passers-by were supposed to join the pursuit, but in practice, not many people could be persuaded to help. It was too dangerous a task, and the constable was unarmed. 119.
An unfortunate country. Australia is a large continent, as large as the United States of America. It was not seen by European explorers until 1642, when a Dutchman, Tasman, sailed round it and took possession of it in the name of Holland. But nearly 200 years went by before Australia began to develop into the modern nation we know today. The main reasons for this late development are these. First, Australia is situated in an unfortunate part of the world. Secondly, most parts of it suffer from a bad climate. In the north, it is uncomfortably wet, and in the west, it is uncomfortably dry. Thirdly, the interior of the country is a desert, which is almost impossible to irrigate. In the fourth place, the mountains run more or less along the outer edges of the continent, so that the interior appears to be a sort of hollow bowl, and since water does not flow uphill, there are no large rivers in Australia. In the fifth place, the original inhabitants were never exploited or influenced by settlers, with the result that a native population never developed till the end of the 19th century. Lastly, Australia's own plants and animals contributed little or nothing to its present-day prosperity. 120.
A nation on wheels. Cars are an important part of life in the United States. Without a car, most people feel that they are poor. And even if a person is poor, he doesn't feel really poor when he has a car. Henry Ford was the man who first started making cars in large numbers. He probably didn't know how much the car was going to affect American culture. The car made the United States a nation on wheels, and it helped make the United States what it is today. There are three main reasons why the car became so popular in the United States. First of all, the country is a huge one, and Americans like to move around in it. The car provides the most comfortable and cheapest form of transportation. With a car, people can go to any place without spending a lot of money. The second reason cars are popular is the fact that the United States never really developed an efficient and inexpensive form of public transportation. Long-distance trains have never been as common in the United States as they are in other parts of the world. Nowadays, there is a good system of air service provided by planes, but it is too expensive to be used frequently. The third reason is the most important one, though. The American spirit of independence is what really made cars popular. Americans don't like to wait for a bus, or a train, or even a plane. They don't like to have to follow an exact schedule. A car gives them the freedom to schedule their own time, and this is the freedom that Americans want most to have. The gas shortage has caused a big problem for Americans, but the answer will not be a bigger system of public transportation. The real solution will have to be a new kind of car, one that does not use so much gas. 121. The Eskimos. Maine is next to Canada. When Tony's grandfather was young, he worked in Canada every summer. Once he visited the north of Canada, near the North Pole. The Eskimos live there. This is what Tony's grandfather told him about the Eskimos. Near the North Pole there are 2 seasons, winter and summer. The winter nights are long. For more than 2 months you can't see the sun, even at noon. The summer days are long. For more than 2 months the sun never sets, and there is no night. The Eskimos have warm clothing. They make most of it themselves. They make it from the skins of animals. From skins, they make coats and hats and even boots. In this cold climate, trees can't grow. The Eskimos have to build their houses from skins, earth, stone, or snow. When they go hunting, they live in tents of skin. When they move, they take their tents with them. When they are out in a storm and can't get back home, they build houses of snow. They leave those snow houses when the storm is over.
122. Kenya. Kenya was a beautiful country inhabited by different groups of people, some farmers, some herdsmen, a few hunters, when the English arrived. The primary motivations for colonizing Kenya were economic, to take away resources, and strategic, to take control before the Germans or some other European power did. However, although colonialism itself was selfish and exploitive, the English were a mixed group of people like everyone else. Many English people were concerned about the welfare of Kenyans and worked hard to improve the Kenyans' lives, or at least to keep their lives from becoming worse under colonialism. These were civil servants, missionaries, and some farmers, business and professional people who worked hard to develop Kenya both before and after independence. Because Kenya was such a pleasant, easy place to live, another group of people came to live in Kenya, known generally as the settlers. The first settlers tended to be the misfits from wealthy families in England, though later they were joined by a wider group of the English population. In particular, English soldiers who fought in the First World War were given farms in Kenya. This is an odd concept, to give away land which does not belong to you in the first place. The people who actually owned the land tended either to be pushed off or to become servants and agricultural laborers for the people who arrived from England.
123.
Flying back to the United States after the first trip to Brazil, for me, was a long and boring flight. A flight attendant had asked me to move from my assigned seat to allow an elderly couple to sit together. The attendant sat me in the middle of a large group of Brazilian women on their way to the States to start their au pair assignments. Normally, this would have been amazing, but after 36 straight hours of performing, partying, and travelling, I was so tired. All I wanted to do was sleep. I was seated next to Anna, an English teacher with big eyes and a gentle voice. We got on really well, so I felt very comfortable and relaxed. We talked for the majority of the 11-hour flight, and it was surprising how quickly the time went. But after the flight, I realised I'd forgotten to get Anna's contact information. I was really depressed, so I decided to contact the airline and got them to help me find her. I found that it was quite embarrassing, but I still gave them her seat number and waited. After some days, I thought that I would never hear from her, but I was amazed when she called me after the airline asked her if she wanted to phone me. We kept in touch, and after that she came and visited my city, and we had a brilliant time. We got married after 2 years, and we're very happy together.
124.
Telephones in Canada. In Canada, almost all homes have telephones, as do offices, hotels, restaurants, places of business, and leisure. You will probably have a telephone at your temporary home and at work. The telephone may be either a direct outside line or an extension through the main switchboard. Coin-operated telephones are available for public use at any time. The charge is 25 cents for a local call, which is returned if the line is busy or there is no answer. There are telephone books which are updated annually. If you can't find a number, ask the operator for assistance by dialing 411. Long-distance calls are easy to make, but they are expensive. It is possible to dial long-distance calls from Canada to most cities in North America and overseas. Instructions and information about the most favorite times and rates are usually listed in the front page of the telephone book, or you may contact the operator for help. 125. American foods. Food is an indispensable part of our life. Different from the ancient times, to stuff our stomach is not all the role that food plays. In civilized society, the idea about food covers more things. In the eyes of Americans, food must be good in taste, color, flavor, shape, and texture. Besides, it must be clean, fresh, and safe. Food must be well packaged and well labeled too. However, the excellent, affluent, and low-priced foods also bring problems. Because Americans have consumed too much meat and animal fat, they are suffering overweight. In addition, the overabundance of cholesterol in their diet can easily lead to heart disease and high blood pressure. Nowadays, in order to solve these problems, imitation foods have come into being. They are very popular in the U.S., not only because they are low in cholesterol, fat, and calories, and resemble the tastes and flavors of the real foods, but because they cost about 25% less than the real ones.
126. English writing. Learners of English usually find that writing is the most difficult skill they have to master. The majority of native speakers of English have to make an effort to write accurately and effectively, even on those subjects which they know very well. The non-native learner, then, is trying to do something that the average native speaker often finds difficult himself. Students, however, often work out a sentence in their own language and then try to translate it in this way. The result is that very often the reader simply cannot understand what the student has written. The individual words or odd phrases may make sense, but the sentence as a whole makes no sense. The student should, therefore, always try to employ sentence patterns that he knows are correct English. Many students seem to think that simplicity is suspect. It is, on the contrary, a quality which is much admired in English. Most readers understand that a difficult subject can only be written up simply if the writer understands it very well. A student should, therefore, organize all his points very carefully before he starts to write.
127. The honeymoon. A popular belief is that honeymoon originated in Germany or Scandinavia. It is supposed to have been the month or moon following the marriage when the bride and groom would retreat to a secluded spot and partake of the honeyed wine called mead. But the idea of a honeymoon or honey month is a fairly recent one. The first printed reference to the term honeymoon does not appear until 1546, and honey month doesn't come in until a century and a half after that. It is not until the early 1800s that honeymoon is found referring to the journey that the couple take after their wedding. However, the term in its original meaning refers not to the period of a month, but to the changeable nature of the moon itself. The newly married are in the honey, or full phase of their love, which, like the moon, is bound someday to wane. The 19th century practice among the upper classes of taking a journey after the wedding redefines the honeymoon concept, and soon it is accepted widely and becomes popular throughout the world.
128. Language families. There are over 3,000 languages that are used throughout the world today. Almost all of these languages belong to a much smaller number of language families. All of the languages within a language family are related, and all of them have a similar history. Therefore, the grammar, vocabulary, and sounds of related languages are similar. In addition, the way of thinking and the style of talking among related languages are also similar. Even though there are over 3,000 languages that are used today, there are only about 20 or 30 major language families. Each of these large families include many individual languages. The language that we are using now is English, and English is, of course, a member of a large language family. English is a member of the Indo-European language family. The Indo-European language family includes most of the languages that are spoken throughout Europe, languages such as English, French, and Greek. Of course, nowadays, many Indo-European languages are spoken in other parts of the world. For instance, Spanish, which is an Indo-European language, is spoken throughout South and Central America, but originally it was spoken only in Europe.
129. My favorite program. With the living standards of people rising year by year, television is now playing a very important role in people's lives, and TV programs have been an essential part of our environment. Of many TV programs, news broadcast, sports competition, talk shows are to my liking, and my favorite program is Animal World, which is broadcasted on CCTV. In this program, a large quantity of animals are introduced. The variety of animals ranges from large to small, and from herbivore to carnivore. There are animals swimming in the water, running on the land, and flying in the sky. From this program, I can also get to know something about the most precious animals in the world. For many years, I have regarded Animal World as my favorite TV program because it is both interesting and instructive. When the program is on TV, it is not only showing some very beautiful pictures, but also telling many new things, and what the animals feed on, how the butterflies grow up, and even how the ants share their work. I'm so impressed by this program that I can tell you many things about animals. I think it is hard to imagine a world without animals.
130. My life. I'll still be working, but things would be different. With any luck, I'll be earning more money. But the most important thing will be the job itself and how interesting it is. I mean, I hope I'll be able to choose the kind of job I do and who I work for. Of course, I'd like to have more money and more authority than I have now, but I don't think they are the only thing in life. What I really want is to be more independent than I am now, to have more control over my own life, perhaps to open a small restaurant, or write a book, or do something like that. I am not sure if I ever have children,